Hello and happy Tuesday. Hope your day is going well. Right now, as I am live, Pete Hegseth is about to testify before Congress, or before, I think it's, I don't know which one. It looks like Senator Collins is on there. So he's going to testify before the Senate and explain why we need like billions more dollars. I think they're asking for 90 billion more dollars to fund the war in Iran. I would like to remind you that we just cut food stamps or SNAP benefits and Medicaid and things like that because we didn't have the money to, like actually take care of American citizens. But boy, how do we all of a sudden have 90 billion extra dollars to just go and squander on a war where all we're doing is murdering people? Donald Trump, I'm not like celebrating American troops being killed. I'm a veteran. I know when you enlist that you know that you're putting your life on the line. You know that's a possibility. And you hope and you trust that a president is going to actually take that into consideration before they send you off to die in a war. They are dead because of Donald Trump's decisions. His reckless, unthought out, politically motivated, psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic, just spur of the moment rationale. And they're dead because of that. And it's terrible that American servicemen died. That said, they are actual, like combatants. They're not civilians. We worry about Iranians being terrorists, but if we're killing civilians, how are we any different? What's the difference between them killing our civilians, which, by the way, they haven't done nearly as much, and us killing their civilians? Did you know that over 1,700 civilians have died at the hands of the United States war with Iran? Over 1,700. That's the lowball estimate. 254 of them are children. We're killing children. And we need $90 billion more to go and pay to kill children. We don't have money to feed our own children, but we're asking for money to go and kill their children. And you want to sit there, the MAGAs, they want to sit there and pretend like they're the self-righteous party. They're the ones that are on the side of God and, country and all of that. No, you're not standing up for God. God said, "Thou shalt not kill," if you're really a Christian. But you're sitting there asking for $90 billion to go kill people. This war is getting insane, and it's not going to go away in a couple of weeks any more than it was going to go away in a couple of weeks, 3 months ago or 4 months ago. And you have a gutless Congress and a gutless Senate that keeps giving more and more money and not having the gumption to say no, the testicles. Pete Hegseth sits there and talks about testosterone as though he's like, I don't get the MAGA obsession with testosterone, but a real man would tell Donald Trump no. A real man doesn't cower in the face of being asked to do something that's immoral. A real man says no when challenged. Pete Hegseth is a beta. He's a child murdering beta. And now he's sitting there, he's asking the U.S. Senate. Right now, as I speak to you, he is asking the U.S. Senate for $90 billion more dollars Hang on a second. I'm gonna get the right number. In the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, I'm just waiting for chat to answer here. How much money was cut? About 186 billion over 10 years. So half of that, half of those cuts he's asking for back. Why didn't we have the money then? Why didn't we have the money to feed those children? But we have the money to murder Iranian children. I'm so tired of this double stupid like standard that MAGAs have. What they said yesterday has no bearing on what they have to say today. What is being gained by this war? Tell me one thing that is good from it. We got rid of the old regime. The new regime is just as bad or worse. Oh, we're going to get the Straits of Hormuz back open. Well, we haven't yet. And it was open before. We have gained nothing from this. Oh, they were going to get nuclear weapons in 2 weeks. Yeah, and you're gullible enough to vote for Trump 3 times. They weren't going to get nuclear weapons. Nobody honestly, really, genuinely believes that has any inkling of reality. There was a right-wing think tank that came up with some really bad math and unrealistic scenarios to where they could have, if they tried to, they could enrich the uranium if they kept everything going at max speed for 2 weeks, which would be impossible because the facilities would break down going at that. It's like saying, oh, I can get from point A to point B if I jump in my car and just smash the accelerator all the way to the floor, in spite of the fact that there's turns involved, other cars on the road. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to crash. All right. So that's my introduction. That's what we're talking about today. We'd probably end up talking some other stuff. Right now, it seems like the MAGAs haven't jumped on the thread yet. So I got some comments from Walter here. If you are on YouTube, I think it should be on all the channels, but I typed a link. I added a link to the description column. If anybody wants to come on and talk to me in person, they're free to do so. I just asked one thing, that we be respectful towards one another, let each other talk and respond to one another's points. So Walter says, afternoon. Do we have any estimates on casualties in Iran? The war has been so closed off to the media, in the field and in the Pentagon. Yeah, I just looked that up. Good question. I looked that up right before because I was curious too. I've noticed that we don't talk about that. Whenever we talk about casualties, it's like the 16 or 17 servicemen that have been killed and the 400 that have been injured. It's always just connection to our soldiers. And this is why I was just trying to say earlier, I think that the president of the United States needs to be very careful when he puts the lives of American servicemen in jeopardy. They need to actually be fighting for something worthwhile, not for his ego. I think it's disgusting that they are dead. They are dead as a direct result of his irresponsible decision-making. That said, they are servicemen. They enlisted in the military. They joined the military voluntarily, knowing that they were joining the military. The 256 dead children in Iran made no such decision. The 1,700 dead civilians in Iran made no such decision. That's 1,700 civilians who are dead. Civilians. And Donald Trump sitting there talking about he's going to kill even more people every time the Iranians kill one of our soldiers. He's going to kill even more. He's a war criminal. Him and Bibi. The next time Trump goes to New York City, Mamdani should have him indicted and lock Trump up for being a war criminal. He's murdering people. There are people he murdered people in the Caribbean. He murdered people in Venezuela. He's murdering people in Iran. You don't just get to go around killing people because you're the president and you scream, oh, it's an emergency. They're a cartel. They're drugs. It's disgusting. And now they're asking for $90 billion more dollars. $90 billion. Walter says $90 billion. How much have we spent since and that's not counting how much we spent since the war started, when this is one of the things that they want to ask about, because the Pentagon won't tell us. And the other thing it won't tell us is it's not just how much money we've spent, but how much money we're going to have to spend to rearm our missiles, right? To rebuild the aircraft that have been destroyed, to rebuild the facilities on these bases that have been destroyed. I imagine it's probably more than the 90 billion. Like, God forbid a mother gives her child a Pepsi that she bought with a SNAP benefit. I don't know what they're going to say to those families at Dover. What are they dying for? Donald Trump's probably going to try and make it about him somehow. Donald Trump will definitely. Walter, did you catch the whole thing where he tried to photobomb the Spanish soccer team when they were taking their victory thing? And he's such a, like, I try to think of something that's disgusting enough. Like, if there was like an infected wart on the testicle of a monkey, and then that infected wart on the monkey testicle had like pus oozing out of it, and that pus oozing out of it was being consumed by a flea. Trump is lower than the pus eating, the monkey testicle infected wart pus eating flea. Like, I cannot think of something disgusting enough to really quantify how disgusting Donald Trump is. And you get these people, oh, he's the greatest president ever. He's the greatest president ever. Can't have a fact-based conversation with them. They just say stupid things. And you ask them to explain it, and they just get stupider. And then you ask them to explain it again, and then they call you stupid. Or they say you're lying, or whatever. So tired of MAGA. So tired of Trump. So tired of just needless wars. And I'm not just talking about this war. Does MAGA really think that Democrats were all on board with the Afghan and Iran wars? We were the ones that fought against it. You guys, the Republicans, were the ones that pushed it. You may have forgotten, but George W. Bush was a Republican. Remember that? He was a Republican. He wasn't a Democrat. The best thing that ever happened to George W. Bush is Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's the only reason that George W. Bush isn't the worst president we ever had. How many people are dead because of George W. Bush and Donald J. Trump? A lot. Tulsi Gabbard didn't believe. That's why she's gone, I guess. Oh, goodness. Tulsi Gabbard. She was... she tried to carry his water for the whole election fraud thing in Georgia. But here we are. So we've got some more people on. If you are here and you would like to come on, I've decided I'm going to open this up. If you want to come on, just click that screen and you can come on the show and you can talk to me about anything that you want to talk about. I just ask that we be respectful towards one another, let each other say what we want to say, and then respond to what the other person said. And just like have a actual human conversation between two humans without insults or just, just back up what you say. Just keep it grounded in truth and respect. That's all. That's all. Like, I'm not blocking anybody for any opinions they have, unless it's like racist or anti-Semitic. And you can't swear because it's a monetized channel, and I don't want to lose that. We can't win versus Iran, so we want to trade. Yeah, so now we're starting a trade war with Canada too. I guess the war with Cuba's off. Donald Trump does not have any, like he just wakes up and he says, what am I going to do? What am I going to do today? I don't know if he was even thinking about a trade war with Canada yesterday. The man is not that intelligent. People act like he's like some sort of genius or something. He's not. I would say he's dumber than a box of rocks, but that's giving him too much credit. Box of rocks is just insulted at the comparison. And now Congress is going to run out of town for a month. Yeah, they're going to hear this. I don't know what's going to happen with this. Congress is so feckless. The whole thing with like you have the DSA, and there's like there's some people like want to spend all their time talking about the DSA. Well, DSA won. Let them run. I just, the party's a big party. We can handle moderates and we can handle DSA in the same party. I think we need like the entire country needs a seismic shift to the left, and we've got our whole concepts of left and right so utterly and completely confused. Like the idea that national health care is some sort of extreme position is in and of itself an extreme position. So Evan says Jesus loves you. Yeah, Jesus also loved universal health care because he provided it. Have you ever thought about this? If you look at Jesus's ministry in the New Testament, Evan, he basically did, like, you consider what he did. One, he taught, right? Gave free education, never charged for the education. Number two, he provided healthcare. He healed people, never once charged anybody for the healthcare. Three, he gave people, the fishes and the loaves, right? He provided free food, and he even brought the drink. He even turned water into wine. Wasn't against booze. Just drink responsibly, maybe. But yeah, he was the original BYOB. He didn't just BYOB, he made his own B. But what he did not do was go around condemning and judging people. The only people that he actually condemned and judged were the people who were condemning and judging people, like the Pharisees and their long phylacteries. The phylacteries were these things that they wore to show how righteous they were. And he was kind of like telling them, you missed the whole point of the law. The point of the law was not that you have to do it. The point of the law was to show you that you couldn't. But they would sit there and kind of ignore their failings, and then they would look at other people's failings to make themselves feel better about themselves. And Jesus was like, dudes, you missed the point. You missed the point. And yeah. So Jesus loves you, but I would say, yes, Jesus loves me, and Jesus loves you, and Jesus loves the transgender people, and Jesus loves the gay people, and Jesus loves the MAGAs. Jesus loves everyone. It says God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. It doesn't say God so loved the people that agreed with him, right? Jesus loves the Muslims. Jesus loves the Buddhists. But that does not mean, like, I think that we have conflated our politics with Jesus so much that most people have no idea who he is or what he did. We don't have money for healthcare, but we got plenty of money for jet flyovers, and Donald Trump's, little, vanity project. This plane that's now going to have more this screaming emoluments clause violation that the Supreme Court was gutless enough to just pretend wasn't an emoluments clause. But the founding fathers did not put the emoluments clause on there thinking that, well, it doesn't technically count if it's a gift to the president and not the person. That's the dumbest, stupidest rationale you could think of. Thomas Jefferson and what's his name, Madison, they would be laughing at that decision. They would be like, no, dude, that's not what we meant. And you call yourselves originalists? By the time he's done, he's going to have a tax-free $1 trillion airplane that he can fly wherever he wants, whenever he wants. And nobody else is ever going to fly on it. Oh, but it's not his. It's not his. It was given to the president, not to the person. What a bunch of hogwash. Of course, the big question about Jesus, did he leave a 15% tip at the Last Supper? They didn't tip them. They just actually paid their waiters and waitresses a living wage. If you've never, if you ever go to Europe or anything and you leave a tip, they'll actually be offended. They're like, what is this, charity? We're the only place that I don't know about Canada. I'm not sure. I don't think I think Canada has it too, but most of the world doesn't do this tipping thing. It's weird. Most places they just pay their employees. He had an intolerance for intolerance. That's a good way to put it. There's paradox of what's his name? Karl Popper talked about the paradox of tolerance. And basically the idea is the only thing you can't tolerate is intolerance, or is tolerance. Or how do I put this? Okay, if you tolerate everything, then eventually intolerance will win because you're tolerating intolerance. And when I say I'm tolerating intolerance, I mean intolerating minorities, intolerating black people and white and women and gays and trans people and all of that kind of stuff. If not you can't tolerate that kind of intolerance. And that's not intolerance, because if you allow that to happen, then eventually intolerance will win. So the only kind of tolerance you shouldn't have is a tolerance towards intolerance. That made so much sense, right? Anyway, Karl Popper, look it up. America should completely defund the aggressive side of the military, shift it to it being a work program, like getting an oil rig contract. I'm not sure that I follow you. I don't want people to be able to rent out the military. He was a carpenter. Pay a contractor. Nah, we have our own government builders. We trained ourselves. How you doing today, Dusty? I'm from India. Here is the hunger strike in Delhi. Sanam Wangchuk, respected legendary person, scientist. Sangrang Wangchuk, sir, here in India. Very bad. Raise our voice, sir. Okay, I don't know anything about this. I'll look into it. Check back tomorrow. I'll take a look at it tonight and I'll learn something about it. I tend to not like to talk about things I don't know about because I like to evaluate things first. But I commend you for your courage in a hunger strike. Speaking of gifts, did you catch the story about the president of Turkey at the NATO summit? He gifted everyone, but forgot to tell everyone he's giving them a free revolver and ammo. Right. And they were just like walking around the airport with like pistols with ammo in them. India is unfortunately a perfect example of what happens when you let people be exploited. Keep fighting over there. It's going to be multiple generations to equal rights. India is going to have a hard future. There are already, like there's already this inequality. I learned everything I needed to know from Slumdog Millionaire. I'm just kidding. But it's going to get worse, I think, because of climate change. And like a lot of times we think of climate change as just being like, it getting warmer. It's like a different way of saying global warming. But climate change is not just the air is getting warmer. The North Pole is warming up faster than the equator. I don't know if you know this, but it's not like a uniform temperature change across the planet. And like it's warming up faster in the north than it is on the equator in the south. And what that means is that the temperature difference between the North Pole and the equator is getting smaller. And so climate is basically affected by a couple of things like the air moving, what we call wind and wind patterns and stuff like that, and water moving, like currents. And so like there's this current that goes from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to Europe, and it brings with it all this warm water. And that warm water is what warms up Europe. And that's why Europe's climate is actually comparable to North America, to America's, the US, even though if you look at the latitude, it's actually more in line with Canada than the United States. It's because of that warm water that's being carried from the Gulf. What happens with climate change is that temperature difference gets smaller, so that the movement of entropy depends on the heat difference. So like if you open up your freezer and the you get that blast of cold air, right? Actually, that's not all the air rushing out of the freezer, it's the air rushing into it. It's the hot air rushing into it, and including the heat on your face, and so it feels like all that air is going into the is coming out at you, but it's actually going into the freezer, because things move from hot towards cold, which is why like that current moves from the Gulf to Europe. And then the smaller the temperature difference, the slower the movement is. And so when you reduce that difference, you reduce the speed of that current, which affects climates. You see where I'm going with this? And so then that is happening both with the current and with the wind, and that means that it's going to start changing weather patterns. And weather patterns are actually one of the real dangers of climate change. And so I didn't forget where I started from. In India, there's like they have like monsoon seasons, and a lot of their agriculture is based on a predictable monsoon season. But what's going to happen in India is with the climate changes, you're going to start having areas where that are either going to be flooded all the time, or they're going to become deserts. And so it's going to really affect how much crops they can grow. And this is in what is now the largest populated country in the world. So anyway, I know that's a lot of actual reality for MAGAs to absorb. So, and it involves physics and stuff. So, but anyway. Okay. Read the prior comments for context. I'm doing good, Pain, but I have a bunch of tamales. Tamales. Hi, any thoughts on China signaling their global power lately? Buying U.S. gold, lowering oil imports, outpacing U.S. AI, etc. I haven't looked into it, and I'm not sure what I'm not sure that everything China does is based on like signaling something to the U.S. I think China is just developing. It's on its own, and we tend to we tend to like exceptionalize everything to make everything about us. So everything China does is about us. I think China is just trying to advance as fast as they can on AI, or trying to advance their own economic situation. I'm not sure that it all is some sort of flex towards the United States. I think China has actually made some really good advancements in AI and 5G and clean energy. Like some of the technology they've developed is really amazing. And I think we could learn from China. I think we need to stop making everything a contest. I guess the Visa gift card was not good enough. Extreme inequality. Extreme. Where does let me ask chat this question. Where does India fit on the Gini index? Do you guys know what the Gini index is? It's not something that we talk a lot about here. The U.S. is not. The World Bank's Gini index, which is the most commonly cited international measure, gives a Gini coefficient of 25.5. Oh, that one's actually not that bad. Actually, India is better than the U.S. That's interesting. Of course, there's the other side of that is it's doesn't say what like that inequality doesn't necessarily mean everybody is poor. India is one of the few countries where the World Bank's Gini index is widely debated. The reason is that the World Bank figure is based primarily on household consumption surveys, not comprehensive income or wealth data, because very wealthy households tend to save and invest much of their income rather than spend it. And are okay. So that explains it. So basically, the Gini index, the data for India on the Gini index is not very good. For index, India has even larger wealth division than America. It's current Gini index is actually like a measure of wealth inequality in a country, and the smaller the number, the better you are. The U.S. out of the industrialized world, the U.S. is last, and it's last by kind of a lot. Like some of the countries around the U.S. are countries like China's better than the U.S. Iran is better than the U.S. Like uh, we have pretty severe income inequality thanks to trickle down economics. It's interesting that India is not more involved in the whole shipping issue in the Persian Gulf and Red Sea. Many of their citizens are doing the merchant seaman thing. Sometimes I feel like Trump is a stooge stood up to destroy our country so corporations can replace democratic rule with corporate rule and oligarch takeover. No rights, no freedoms, just take what crumbs they give us. It's no coincidence that the tech elite were standing behind Trump at inauguration. And let's not forget that Trump would fancy himself as one of those oligarchs. It's not like he was just some pauper that they propped up. And I think it's also like time to recognize that being rich and being smart don't necessarily go together. Like Elon Musk does not really. I'm not saying Elon Musk is stupid. I'm just saying he's not a genius. He's not. He's really not. I mean, he's not. Headache. So one thing that I think I always say that like the difference between a smart person and a genius is a smart person can take a simple thing and make it sound complicated, and a genius can take a complicated thing and make it sound simple. Elon Musk can take something really, really simple and make it sound like it's this big complicated thing. And it's like if you have to work that hard to wrap your brain around that, Elon, then you're not really as smart as you think you are. But yeah, this is the unabetted reign of the Epstein class. I forget who came up with that, but I think that's a good word for it. It seems like that. Why is it all these people are all kind of wrapped up with Epstein too? If you're watching and you would like to pop on and have a conversation, the links in the description. It's not uncommon for cruise ships to have a lot of Indian staff because our minimum ethical wages is really damn good still and pull you out of poverty nearly immediately being put in staff quarters. Yeah. I think that I'm not sure. Are they bound by whatever laws they're the flag they fly under? Or, I don't know. I love how Trump is now making war on our allies again. Now we're messing with Canadians. Are we going to have any friends left? Why? How do you piss off Canada? Canada's like the nicest guy, I mean, Canada's a nice guy, but Canada's not a wuss. Canada's like the nice guy that maybe the bully is like thinks because Canada's a nice guy, he can push him around. And then so he pushes him around, but Canada's a hockey player. Canada knows how to scrap. So when Trump tries pushing them around, they pull his jersey up over his head and then start just, pounding him. And then he's like all offended that Canada you know, is being mean and unfair. And it's like, hey, don't start what you can't finish, Donald. China is kind of focused on its own issues. The Uyghurs getting put in regarding education wasn't about erasure like America, but instead dealing with radicalized Muslim youth. Oh, I don't know anything about that. I've never looked into it. It's probably something I should look into, but it's one of those things that seems more complex. I don't think China is like perfect. I think there's some human rights abuses going on there, but it's not like we have any place to say anything about human rights now. And I always get. I'm also always like tentative to talk about anything about radicalized Muslims because most Muslims are not radicalized and they're easy to label as radicalized. There are radicalized Muslims. There are also radicalized Christians. A bunch of them tried to overthrow the United States of America, if you remember. Hi, Biff. How you doing? It's complicated, of course. Yeah, I think a lot of things are complicated. Much more so than our usual discourse would allow. It's not communism if its people aren't restrained from leaving. You're talking about China? This is if you never had it, it's called Tapachi, I think. It's like you make it from fermented pineapples. It's really good. It's like pineapple soda, homemade pineapple soda. According to my liberal aunt, America is the poorest. She lives in an ivory tower. We can afford $90 billion to go and murder Iranian people, though. So there's that. Bad is here in the U.S. It's bad here in the U.S. Frig Reagan. Yes. The whole trickle-down economics, the reason that the economy is suffering is that rich people don't have enough money because the poor people are hogging it all. Oh, Jesus Christ, another leftard on a live stream. Well, that was an insightful comment. The new economic power will be the agreement between Canada, India, China, Indochina. This is one of the things. Like, okay, so you look at Donald Trump's trying to blow up the agreement he just made with Canada and Mexico, right? He's complaining about Iran. You can't make a deal with them because they're going to just, break it up as soon as they sign it. And that's what he does. We made a deal with Iran. We ended the deal with Iran. Iran did not end the deal with us. Donald Trump ended the deal with Iran. And you say, oh, well, that's because Obama made it. Well, there's got to be continuity between presidents, right? Like, we don't sit there and have an Etch-a-Sketch with every country in the world and just reset it every time there's a new president that takes office. And the NAFTA 2.0, that was Donald Trump's deal, and he just junked that too. He just scrapped that. He said, this is a terrible deal. Well, then why did you talk about it as the greatest deal ever when you made it, Donald? You're not alone. My own mother thinks Israel is oppressed while being backed by the USA constantly. You know, I've been thinking about this as an analogy. Have you ever tried to balance, like do the thing where you balance a broomstick on your finger, like on your fingertip right there? And the trick is you put it on there and you hold it up like this, and then you let go and you look up at the top of the broom, and then your hand will just follow automatically. Like you don't have to try to balance it. It's just your hand follows the top of the broomstick. But if you try looking at your hand, then it's just gonna fall over. And I've been thinking about that in like in terms of how we form our opinions and how we talk about politics. And the I think we do a lot of things backwards. We look at what our opinion is and we defend our opinion, and that's like looking at our hand. Actually, our opinion should actually be somewhat flexible and move around as we gain new information, right? As other things happen, maybe even like with me, like with Plattner, when some of the stuff first came out, like I looked at the Nazi tattoo thing and I didn't know what that thing was, so I thought it was pretty believable that somebody could get that tattoo without realizing it's a Nazi tattoo. So I looked and, did he have, he had some problematic Reddit posts, but none of them were like really Nazi stuff. Like he wasn't sitting there talking about how great Hitler was or anything. And didn't have all these, like the Nazis, they have the American Nazis, they have all this, numerology and stuff. And apparently, there was none of that stuff. The kind of stuff I would expect to see from a Nazi that had a Nazi tattoo on purpose. And so I said, cut the man a break. Then the other stuff came out, and then that was new information. When I got the new information, I was like, no. The Republicans can elect rapists. We do not. So I changed my opinion with new information. So that's what I mean. You keep your eye on top of the broom, and your opinion might move. Your opinion might adjust as that new information comes. I think we form too much. It's easy to form what facts we choose to believe based on what our opinion is. But we should be basing our opinion on what the facts are. And the way we do that is to just keep our eyes on the facts, on honest propositional logic. And then our opinion will automatically follow what the facts say. And our problem, to your point, Dusty, is we don't focus that much on the facts. We focus more on our opinions. We argue our opinions. We don't discuss the facts. And that's why you get people that say things like, Israel is oppressed. Capitalism without socialism is fascism. Socialism without capitalism is communism. We need both for a fair society. Your opinion? I agree with your phrasing here. I have, I found that what the wording I like is mixed capitalism, because it's not one that people have these hardened opinions about. But it like when you're talking about what we have in Europe, and to a degree what we have in the United States, like I don't want a privately owned military. I personally prefer that the military be owned by the government. And like our roads should be publicly owned, because it's better for everybody if it's free to drive on them. Some things are better off publicly owned, but I also want to be able to have people have businesses and determine their own futures and what they want to do for a living, and innovate and produce new things and come up with ideas and have a profit incentive. I think we need both of those things. We need to have the things that are better for society to own should be owned by society, and the things that are better for to be privately owned should be privately owned. Like, and I think that there's maybe even like some things, maybe some of both, like healthcare. Maybe we're better off with the hospitals and the doctors being private practices and not the state-run medical, but the state pays the state pays for it, right? Like the state acts as the insurer. Let me guess, you are a Trump supporter. Nobody has ever accused me of being a Trump supporter. I have no idea where you got that guess from. The ship is bound. I'm serious. I have no idea. I think I referred to him earlier in the show as a flea sucking on the infested pus of a testicle on a monkey. So yeah, I am not a Trump supporter. The ship is bound to the laws of the country of port. So flag they fly under. Yeah. Einstein has never had to tell people how smart he was. Yet, I know a lot of smart people. Never heard a smart person. When I say smart people, I also mean educated, but I also mean smart. I mean, I know that you're going to have somebody, well, just because you have a PhD doesn't mean you're smart. Yeah, it kind of does, but that's beside the point. I hate it when people, oh, you can be a painter and be smart too. Yes, you can. You don't, I'm not saying you need to be a PhD to be smart, but I'm saying it's kind of hard to get a PhD if you're stupid. And if you've ever gone to college and stuff, like, yes, there is actual hurdles. It's like, it's not like, you can just go and dunk a basketball just because you like to jump. PhDs are hard to get. Einstein never had to tell people how smart he was. He's pretty much showed it with his theories. Trump always has to flap his lips about all his accomplishments, usually lies. For somebody that talks as much about how smart he is, I say it's like being a cool kid, right? The cool kids would never even, like the coolest kids wouldn't even know they were cool kids. You talk about them as one of the cool kids and they'd be like, what? They don't think of themselves as cool kids. I tell you one thing though. Here's one characteristic of smart people that I think is almost universally true. They're curious. And Einstein was curious. Right? What's his name? The other guy. What's his name? Feynman. Richard Feynman, who, if you've ever, he's got, his biography is really, really good if you've never read it. He was really smart and he was really curious. You find a smart person, or you find a really smart person, and I guarantee you they're curious. That's why they end up doing things. Because they're like, well, what is the answer for this? And then they go and they try and figure it out. The smartest historians are like, well, why is this way? And so they go and they look and they read and they learn and they find things out. Donald Trump is the most incurious president, with the possible exception of George W. Bush. I guess at least George W. Bush learned from SpongeBob. Most commercial shipping flies third-party flags. That's why everyone is registered in places like Liberia or Panama. Liberia has the most flags in the world. I think it's because they only charge like $20 a year or something. They're just cheap. I just wish the Canadians would get that whole fire stuff under control. Well, I'm sure they would too. I mean, it's not like they're doing it on purpose. Perhaps we could help them the way they helped us. Good. Thank you, Biff. Are you East Coast, Walter? East Coast, Philadelphia. Born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days, when a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight. Sorry. Are you in West Philadelphia, Walter? More radicalized, a little white boys for certain. We might need a re-education to teach killing is bad and racism is literally an entity. The last thing we need to do is tariff Canada more. When we need to potash fertilizers, while no fertilizer is coming out of the strait. If Trump doesn't stop with this stupidity, food shortages will start next year. Farmers already reduced the amount of crops planted due to the cost of fertilizer. Thank you, Leslie. That's a good comment. And this is what I mean when I say that Trump is incurious. These are things that other people are saying, right? Like if he was even the least bit curious, he would know these things. But he comes up, he pulls a thought out of his ass, and then he acts like it's, the most ingenious thing that anybody ever thought of. Like, oh, Democrat. See, oh, wow, I'm a creative genius. I came up with Democrat all on my own. I'm so smart. Should I spell it with a B or not a B? Because, like dumb is spelled with a B, but Democrat doesn't have a B. So the only question is, does Democrat have a B? And he talked about this for like a month, like he was some sort of genius. You have never had to deal with wildfires. They may burn until fall. Can't stop nature. Happens every year out west. Yep. And Canada came out west to help us out. Like, and this is another byproduct of climate change, which will also contribute to climate change. The forestation up in Canada and Russia, that's the second biggest, because, the forests don't actually follow national laws, boundaries. But that's the second biggest containment of greenhouse gases in the world behind the rainforest. And so when those things burn down, it can escalate climate change. And it's one of the real concerns that climatologists have. Sorry, I didn't see that big guy being mean. If we don't poke Iran in every country would be in a better position. Right now, there is nothing good that has come out of the Iranian war. Nothing. Not a thing. And every bad thing that has happened was entirely not only predictable, it was predicted. Good lad. Thank you, sir. Of all the tattoos on the parlor wall, y'all pass on the anchor and the high mom tattoo. I want that one. Yeah, but I mean, I looked at it. I did not I honestly did not know what that was. Like, I would have thought it was like, I think even like there's Motorhead or somebody, they have a bandana with that on their thing. And I don't know if they're a Nazi. I mean, like, I do not know it's a Nazi symbol. Like, I know there are two kinds of people that know the Nazi symbols: the people that study it because they're Nazis, and the people that study it because they're Antifa. Like, they're really strongly anti-Nazi. This is not the kind of thing that you just pick up like the swastika, right? And I know you can see it in Hogan's Heroes, but I wasn't studying Hogan's Heroes for iconography. So, I mean, I just did not know. I would not have recognized that as a Nazi symbol. And I seriously doubt, like that he would rip his shirt off in bars and brag about it the way that the one person said. Like, she's the only one that could remember that. But, the whole I'm a rape, the whole rapist thing was definitely a disqualifier. I don't think the tattoo was, because I think it's possible that you got a tattoo without realizing what it was. I can't vote in Maine, but I can phone bank for a different candidate. Hey, my wife got 9 people to vote for John Ossoff, and we live in Texas. Following culture, the news, or politics is neurotic. No, it's not. It's intentional craziness making oh I think that not following the news or politics is neurotic. Look up Henry Ford's hemp car. We can grow hemp for our own fuel. Okay, I'm going to do that right now because I never knew this thing was a thing. Uh, did Henry Ford have a hemp car? So, okay, so we're going to take a look at this real quick because it's sort of interesting. All right. So it's sort of true, according to chat, whence you can believe it or not. Henry Ford did build an experimental car in 1941 that incorporated plant-based products, and hemp was likely one of several fibers used. However, many viral claims exaggerated what it was. What is true, in 1941, Ford unveiled a prototype with body panels made from a plastic reinforced with agricultural fibers. The exact formula was proprietary and wasn't fully documented, but contemporary accounts and later research indicate fibers likely included a mix such as hemp, soy, wheat straw, flax, and ramie. The plastic body was mounted on a conventional steel frame. The body panels were reportedly much lighter than steel and more resistant to dents. Ford was passionate about finding industrial use for farm crops. He even wore soybean fiber suits and invested heavily in research on plastics made from agricultural products. That's actually interesting. We should get back to that. What is exaggerated, the internet often claims that Henry Ford built a car made entirely of hemp. The car ran on hemp fuel. Neither is supported by the historical evidence. The car was not entirely hemp, did not have a hemp chassis, and used conventional gasoline engine, not hemp-driven fuel. If you were to try to make a car that was, drove based on hemp fuel, I think it would actually become an airplane because it would get high. All right. Why it never went into production. World War II shifted manufacturing to military production. Petroleum-based plastics became cheaper after the war, and steel production expanded, reducing the economic incentive for agricultural plastics. So that's interesting. I think that one maybe we should get back into that. Because I know one of the big complaints about if we get rid of, if we, as we go off of fuel and, into renewables, what about all the plastics and stuff? But maybe we can look into like developing plastics around renewable things like hemp. All right, so we're falling behind in the comments again. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was falling that far behind. Because I didn't see that many people on. All right, so there we go. Trump. I don't know what the finger point. Einstein was a Freemason. Don't trust any Freemasons. Right. I pay my Masons. Knowledge is irony. The more you learn, you actually know nothing. Yeah, Charlie, I always say that there's 3 stages of learning. You don't know anything, you know everything, and you don't know anything. And it's only once you don't know anything that you know anything. Because you know what you don't know. I don't know where he's. I think this is some kind of troll. You hate us because you ain't us, MAGA. Can't stop winning. Okay, what is MAGA won, Raptor? Can you tell me what MAGA has won? Other than, the right to drive the country into the ground. When PhDs are laughing at how they're giving them put like candy, you are just blatantly wrong. Also, we lost the PH part in most submissions now. I don't know what that rambling nonsense is about. MAGA is Israel first and America never. Let's keep the chat on this topic, please. Or keep the chat on topic. Yeah, we're kind of, that's fair, Walter. America has the Epstein amnesia. Look up the Franklin cover-up and Ted Gunderson. Epstein isn't new. This has been going on since before the 80s. Well, I don't know what all that's about, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about Epstein because whatever this Franklin Gunderson or whatever. News break. Cuba is being, I mean, nobody thinks that Epstein, invented sex trafficking. News break. Cuba is being accused of accepting drones from other countries. What do you mean accused of? Doesn't Cuba have a right to do that? Cuba's an independent nation. Why do we get to decide whether or not Cuba can receive drones? Actually, I am in West Philadelphia. Just a few neighborhoods over from. Did you ever shoot hoops on a playground? So are you saying I don't go outside? I didn't say anything about that. Cool. I don't know. Ted Gunderson and the Franklin cover-up is not a conspiracy theory. I didn't say it was a conspiracy theory. Quit your sniveling, little lettuce boy, whatever that means. Trump and the Clinton Foundation opening a diamond mine in Haiti, poisoning the water, killing hundreds of thousands of people in the 90s. Isn't it? Well, that actually is a conspiracy theory that's been debunked. There are no tariffs in American crops. And look up the executive order that exempts around 260 incoming crops and fertilizer. There are tariffs. Well, of course there's no tariffs on American crops because they're American. So we're not going to tariff our exports. That's not how tariffs work. And there are the concern about tariffs, or about the fertilizer prices coming out of Iran, is not to do with tariffs. It has to do with just the fact that they're not able to get out because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. The tariffs that he's talking about are Donald Trump is now threatening to tariff everything that's coming out of Canada because Canada's being meanies, according to him. Hey, Brett, welcome. Good day. How you doing? It was a symbol that already existed in Marine history, then got adopted by Nazis like all Nazi symbols. Yeah, I know about it now, but I didn't know about it then. I mean, it's like I looked it up and said, oh, okay, I know what it is now, but I don't think everybody is an expert on Nazi iconography. Trump and Putin suck. They do. And so does Bibi, by the way. And on that note, I would love it if Mamdani arrested Bibi. I think it's funny watching the Republican outrage over the idea of Mamdani arresting Bibi, as though like the notion of arresting a foreign leader that has a subpoena is all of a sudden, anathema. But when Donald Trump like sends American soldiers to go and kidnap the leader of another country, then that's okay. If one reads Mein Kampf, doesn't make you a Nazi, it makes you more observant and book smart. Okay, yes, if you're reading Mein Kampf to see what it says, there are some people that can read Mein Kampf to understand where Hitler came from, right? And then there are people who can read Mein Kampf to learn from it. Not to learn about it. You can read it for either the right reasons or the wrong reasons. Our 2,500 nuclear warheads are worth more than all the printed cash by central bankers in the history of mankind. The interest on the national debt is unpayable. Inflation's what? Wow. That's a lot of capitals. I mean, and kind of disjointed and really doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. That's what the diesel engines were originally designed to run on. The hemp, I don't think that's true. I think diesel engines were originally designed to run on diesel. Mostly a guy spamming anti-Semitism mixed in with the previous small cereal of truth. I had to put them in time out because of the conspiracy mixed in. Okay, so guys, I'll tell you this: Dusty, Brett, and Walter are all mods, and if they put you on timeout, you earned it. The U.S. Liberty guy, yeah, that's a troll name if I ever saw one. Like, do you? I mean, like, people think that the U.S., like especially MAGAs, they act like the U.S. is the only country in the world that has freedom. You know, we're not even like in the top 10 in freedom. I got some hemp-derived THC. I will say this: there are some Republicans that could. I'm just saying, there are some Republicans that if they had some gummies, the world would be a better place. I'm not advocating for the abuse of drugs, but Donald Trump could use a gummy. Stephen Miller could probably go. I mean, a mushroom gummy might not be a bad idea for Stephen Miller. Like, he needs to have a trip and have a conversation with the girl that put him in the locker when he was in junior high. Like, he has some stuff that he needs to reckon with that I think that maybe some hallucinogenics might help him deal with. But that man has issues. I forget microdosing. He needs to do macrodosing. He needs to get a full-on acid trip. I have about an ounce, but I quit in springtime. America, I'm surprised nobody was there to like mock my rapping stylings of Will Smith. America Inc. has contributed the decline of Washington. I don't know what that means. I saw you go live, but after I got home, I had to run to Harbor Freight to pick up a gear puller. I don't even know what a gear puller is. You clearly know, like you're like a car person, or is that for your bike? But I understand real life. Trump keeps going on that we have already won the war in Iran because we destroyed their Navy, Air Force planes, but Iran never made much investment in those defense assets. Instead drone technology and missiles. We seriously depleted our own defenses defending against cheap drones. Yeah, I was like, we were having, like sending out 10. We were sending out $10 million missiles to fight $10,000 drones. And now we want $90 billion more dollars. The hearing is going on right now, which I'm glad I can't hear because I'd probably be mad at it. Maybe Pete Hegseth. I don't know. Pete Hegseth needs to just stop drinking. Bankers are the key. Rothschild are the printers of fiat lending money. Yeah, this is some weird stuff. No, the Rothschilds. It's like you guys want to make Hillary Clinton to be the most powerful person in the history of the planet. And she's not even powerful enough to get elected. In spite of the fact that we steal elections. Anyone passing on the salad today? Ooh, let us think about that. See what I did there? Let us think about that. Who knew that Taco Bell could cause explosive diarrhea? Weren't we trying to talk about Iran this stream via the title? We were, but this is the ADD stream. So yeah, the main topic is Iran, and who anybody else think that we should send Iran $90 billion more dollars to kill more children so that we don't have to feed our own? I just personally don't think we need to prioritize killing other people's children over feeding our own. Call me crazy. Ships have to pay crazy fees for insurance due to the war. Yeah, and that's becoming a real danger. Is not just that Iran will shut down the Straits of Hormuz, because now the Hezbollah is talking about blocking this other passageway, and then insurance companies saying no, we're not going to insure that, and so then people are just going to be like not even going to try. All because Donald Trump just decided he had to have a war with Iran. And then he was talking about how courageous he was. Oh, trolls derailed again. Yeah. Did you guys block him? I seen a reporter ask Trump about Iran directly. If they were obliterated or something, why do we have to keep doing it? And he lashed out at her and called her a fake news. He was horrible. There was a segment on Fox where it's like, what's her name? Bartolomeo or whatever. Was like, well, I don't understand it. Like, she was like, you could, what? It wasn't like she wasn't arguing this rhetorically. She was trying to reconcile the thoughts in her head. It was like live struggle with cognitive dissonance. And she's like, I don't understand. If we've destroyed the Navy like Trump says, then how can they be still blocking the Straits of Hormuz? How are they doing it without a Navy? I don't understand. What's going on? Yeah, I mean, like cognitive dissonance live. And without a faith, it is impossible to please him, for he comes to God must believe that he is, and he is rewarder of those who seek him. Okay, yeah, you must have this confused with the Bible channel. I still live Nancy Reagan's advice on drugs. I think some people need to just say maybe, though, like, or occasionally. Like, Stephen Miller needs to get, like, he needs an acid trip. $565 to replace broken ice maker in a 3-year-old fridge. I'm sure the parts are imported. Thanks to Trump's tariffs. Wow. That sucks. Hello, Harry. I was trying to log on yesterday. I saw some of your comments. And, yeah. So that was quite a game. What did you think of Trump trying to photobomb the celebration picture? Before I get to the topic, I would just like to say FIFA better penalize the fornication out of Argentina, or I will go into a flying fury. Knowing the World Cup, probably not. So I was thinking, if you play spin the bottle with a cup, because you don't have a bottle, is that a World Cup? And the UK has a new prime minister already. Yeah, what do you think? Is it like when is the next election? Is it like a month or two away? I can't even keep track of them. So Harry likes the new one. I seen that Spain photoshopped. Oh, so yeah, Spain photoshopped Trump out of their FIFA with pick because he inserts himself in everything. Of course, that was just that's just so Donald Trump. So Donald Trump. And the FIFA guy had to come over and like pull him away. Like, what made him think that he belonged in that picture? It's not even your country, dude. Did you see the president of Mexico or the prime minister of Canada there? Like, they were also host countries. He's such like, goodness gracious. He always has to be the center of attention. And this is that, like, he insults their country. Then he wants to sit there and act like he should be in their picture. How embarrassing for Trump. Sadly, he wasn't embarrassed. He should be embarrassed. But he doesn't have the capacity to be embarrassed. He doesn't have the humility to be embarrassed. He thinks that he was perfectly justified in being there. Oh, actually, a new one already? Y'all voted already? So no, the next election is 2029 at a minimum. The next election, he was, I think, responding to me. They just had an election, I think. Yeah, Maria Bartiromo is a horrible person. The only time she ever showed humanity is when she interviewed Prince. She wanted to sit on his lap so bad. She interviewed Prince? Wow. I'm just going to say this. Prince is one of the top 2 or 3 live performers ever, in my opinion. It's like either him or Freddie Mercury. Like those are my top 2, and I can't pick between the 2 of them. But Prince was a musical genius. Like he could just pick up an instrument he never played and perfect it in like 5 minutes. But is the subject to the discretion of Andy Burnham, the new prime minister, as they get to advise the king what day the election will be. So he's the prime minister now, and then there's going to be another election, or is this the next, like he won an election and now the next election? Because you guys don't do it like we do. We have like every 4 years or whatever, and then in England, the prime minister can just call for an election anytime he wants or something. Oh, I'm not too behind, but Ben Face has had all my attention lately. Yeah, how'd it go with Ben Face? I want Ben Face to run for senator in Maine. As Keir Starmer would say, put your vote in the bin. Boom. No, there was a by-election. What's a by-election? Boy, I've never heard of a by-election. Is that like it goes both ways? Everybody wins? Sorry, I couldn't help myself. It is the Punch Show. For the seat of Makerfield, which Andy Burnham won, which is how he became a MP, to then become leader of the Labour Party, to then become prime minister. So Ben didn't win. Small would not even be across the pond news without Ben Face. So I guess now he's a has-been. In the UK, the prime minister is appointed by the king, but by convention, he is the person who can command the confidence of the House of Commons. That does not have to be an election for a new prime minister to be chosen. The only requirement for general elections is there has to be one every 5 years. But the prime minister gets to advise the king what day that would be, as long as they have called one within 5 years. If they do not, there is an automatic process that kicks in. So the king still has some power. Is that like a nominal power? Does the king ever say, no, I don't want to have it then? Like, is this a power that like the king or the queen would ever actually exploit? I need to familiarize myself more with this process. Boy. There's a Trump joke in there somewhere. Not over yet. I don't think they voted on the small by-election yet. No. No, Count Benface is now running in the seat of Clacton on C, so that is a separate election. So he's not a has-been. You should watch the interview she did on Prince. She was dripping. You have to see it. It is hilarious. That is something I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure I could stomach. I don't think I could handle an aroused Bartiromo. The Clacton election is August 13th. No, man, Dusty is like just coming off with this, knows exactly what's going on over there. No, so officially the king can exercise it whenever they want, but it is convention. They only do it on the advice of the prime minister. So I'm imagining that initially back in the day it was more of a actual power, but now it's just kind of left in there ceremonially. I wonder what would happen if the prime minister decided to actually pull rank, or if the king were to try to. Does 10 Downing Street have a ballroom? Oh my goodness! I think Buckingham Palace does. Have you watched YouTube videos and or gone to the website of Election Truth Alliance? I think you'll find them of interest. I'm going to ask every time I see you. Okay, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to put in a note. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to create a note of things I'm supposed to look at. So look at, okay, so the India hunger strike. And then China human rights. And then, what was that one? Sorry. Oh, yeah, the Election Truth Alliance. All right. All right. I have not looked at it yet, but I put it down in a note. I just started this just for you. I'm keeping track of notes of things that people ask me about, but I don't feel confident to say anything about because I don't know anything about, and I'll look into it. And if you come back tomorrow, then I will give you my opinion. So go ahead and come back tomorrow. If you haven't already clicked subscribe, go ahead and do that so that you can remind yourself. But I'll look at it after the show today, and I'll let you know tomorrow. It's more like a mayor of a district, Clacton. Okay, I can't translate stuff from here, so I don't know what that means. Yeah, I can't translate that from Restream. I think there's probably a translate on the YouTube stream, but I can't translate it here. So sorry. If the king did that, they would probably be there would be a constitutional crisis. So yeah, sorry. I can't read that. I don't know the language. Sorry, mods, don't know Russian dialects. I don't know if there's a translate button or something. General politics in Iran. So I was mentioning this at the top of the show when nobody was here. But did you know 1,700 civilians have died in Iran? And Donald Trump's sitting there saying that he's going to kill even more people every time an American service member has died. And I think that there's he is literally got it backwards, right? Like, actual soldiers should be the targets in war, not civilians. He's mad that they're killing soldiers because we are attacking their country and they are defending themselves against the people that are killing their civilians. And he's got the right. He's got the gumption to act like somehow, Iran is wrong in defending itself. Look, I have a lot of problems with Iran, but it's a nation and it has a right to defend itself against a foreign invader, which is what we are. So Brett says, yes, it is in ruins, which is to the, I don't know if that's Russian or Ukrainian or some, I think there must have been I think he must have gotten that translated, or Brett speaks more languages than I thought. America is the terrorist. And I've said that. If Iran killed 17, how many people died on? Hang on. $29.77. So just under 3,000 people died on 9/11. I think we're up to 1,700 as a conservative count in Iran. And I think we've done more structural damage. So, and Iran didn't have anything to do with 9/11, by the way, but we're the terrorists. We are using violence to achieve political ends. How is that not terrorism? He's speaking Ukrainian. So what is he saying? I would just translate, but there's no translate function here. But I'll just mention this along the lines of Ukraine is Russia is the bad guys and Ukraine is the good guys. Ukraine is actually pretty much in the same position as Iran, right? Like they got attacked by another country, by a superpower. And they're just fighting to defend themselves. We don't sit there and complain that Ukraine kills Russian soldiers. We complain that the Russian soldiers are killing Ukrainian civilians. My local furniture store has "We Stand with Ukraine" signs in the windows. He said the world is in ruins and asked what we are talking about. Yeah. Okay. Do you speak Ukrainian? Do you speak Ukrainian? Or are you using the translate function, Brett? But yeah, I think it's really sad. Even did you notice? Did you hear? Did you see this? Guess who came around on Ukraine? Not the first person I would have expected. But she went to Ukraine, saw the mass graves, and admitted she was wrong. Laura Loomer. MAGA even lost Laura Loomer on the whole Russia thing. I was not expecting that. Laura Loomer is not the sanest person in the room. When they've lost like Laura Loomer. And I'm imagining there's going to be some sort of schism there. It's like Tucker Carlson, Laura Loomer, Will Shapiro's whole thing is starting to fall apart, or Ben Shapiro. You've got like there's some sort of, he's wigging out. Tim Pool's still trying to get tall enough to fit into his own hat. It's coming up short though. He's complaining about the left being platformed by foreigners, which is kind of hilarious because he was platformed by foreigners. By Russia in particular. No more money for no one and nothing. Time to shut off the money. 40 trillion in debt. We need our money here. Well, I think we do need our money here. I think we need to give it to maybe stop giving it to billionaires and start giving it to hundredaires. Like, I have no problem funding SNAP benefits. We've already spent today. The money that they are asking for the war today is 5 years worth of the SNAP cuts. So we could feed children for 5 years with that same money. But we choose not to do that. We don't have the money to feed children, but we have the money to kill children. There's a problem with that. We've had 270 of the 1,700 people that we killed in Iran were children. Why can we kill children in Iran, but we can't feed them in America? I do not understand that. I do not understand how you go about that and call yourself a Christian. The Bible literally says, feed the children. And it literally says, don't kill. I don't think there's any good sides in the conflict. And I'm not trying to advocate for the Iranian regime. I think they're also terrorists. But I don't think that the children that went through that just were going to school really had a political say in things. I think a lot of the people dying in Iran are just innocent people that are getting, do I die from butthead number 1 or butthead number 2? Which one's going to kill me? My phone has live translate. Oh, cool. Ah. Oh, no wonder I couldn't read it at all beyond a few pronouns. Ukrainian is a different dialect. I do not speak any Ukrainian or Euro-Asian dialects. What do you speak? I speak English and not very well. I say I'm trilingual. I'm still trying to learn one language. I think that those for wars should meet at 10 paces till we run out of them. So this is an interesting thing that I was thinking about. Did you know the first time the U.S. used its military was in, I want to say 1791 or 1792. It was the Whiskey Rebellion. Some people got pissed off about the taxes, and they were trying to insurrect. And so the government had just passed the First and Second Militia Acts, and George Washington, who was the sitting president, activated the military, or the militia, and led like Virginia's and Pennsylvania's and somebody else's military to go, our militias to go put down this insurrection, which disbanded before he got there. But he actually led the charge. Like, he led it. He didn't order them to go and then stay in the White House in the Situation Room. He actually led the charge. I wonder how much different we would be about our approach to war if the president of the United States actually was the one that led the charge. Wouldn't that be interesting? Kash Patel is going to Russia this October. He's been given the green light not to talk about it now. What the fornication? Is the FBI? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the FBI is domestic, right? So why is he going to Russia? He must need to. I think he must need to talk to the boss. That's CIA territory. Bad poop going down. Yeah, there's an idea. Susan agreed. World leaders should get in a cage and fight it out hand to hand. Yeah, cage match. I don't know if I'd want to see a cage match with Donald Trump. I mean, just imagine once that diaper starts getting squeezed, and I'm just saying that it may literally be a poop show. Like, it would be gross, just smeared all over the place. It would look like the Capitol building on January 21st or on January 6th. Works program should replace welfare programs. I don't think so. Why do you say that? I mean, like, have you actually looked into this, Susan? This is the kind of thing that a lot of people say that haven't really actually explored what it is. Why? Why do you say that? How much have you looked into it? What if I told you it actually costs more money to do that than to not have a works program? What if I told you that most of the people that are receiving SNAP benefits actually do work? What if I told you that I think it's like you can only get SNAP benefits for like 3 months every 3 years when you're unemployed? I mean, this is like a nice, and it's like we are so concerned that children might get something for free that they didn't earn. Like that's the travesty here. Elon Musk has gotten $38 billion from the US government, and we're worried about whether or not some black kid is going to get a free Pepsi. All I got is a tiny bit of English, Spanglish, and enough Yiddish to understand other Dutch languages. Tiny bit. Where people immediately switch to English in real life. That's how much that's how much Italian I knew when I lived in Italy. I learned enough to butcher it enough that, like I've noticed if you go to most countries, you don't have to know like a lot of people around the world speak English, right? But they don't want you to just go there and just walk around assuming that they speak English. It's American exceptionalism. It's annoying to them that you just walk into their country and expect them to speak your language, even though you get really annoyed that Spanish people come here and other people come here and they don't learn English first, right? And so if you go in and you make a good effort to at least try to speak their language, they'll say, "Oh, I speak English," and usually they speak really good English. Especially like if they're in a tourist shop or something. Doesn't Cash Patel already have a job to do? Where is Savannah Guthrie's mother? Oh, bam. I wonder if he's going to make it that much longer. It sounds like he might be on the way out. Patel is definitely up to something with Russia just before midterms. They're going to try some. Oh man, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't connected that to the election. They're going to try and steal the election under the guise that we're trying to steal it. I have no doubt. I'm trying to be lingual in my own first language. One cruise missile or one Reaper drone can buy a whole city snap food for almost a year, and it gets exploded in seconds. And it's like, where are our priorities? Like, why do we need that cruise missile to kill children? Like, what is the gain from that? George Washington started our first mill. Well, yeah, before we were a country, he was the general. Then he actually resigned as general. One of my favorite quotes about George Washington is, the greatest thing he did was resign twice. He resigned the first time as general before he ran for office, so that there wouldn't be this precedent of having a general be president, like the president of the United States being the commander in chief, and like also the literal commander of the armed forces. That it was kept separate in between the civilian leadership of the military and the military leadership of the military. Because imagine if that were the case now with Trump. The other thing that he did was resign after his second term, and setting up that as a precedent, which FDR messed up. Not only can't feed them, I still have schools in Philadelphia that don't even have air conditioning. Some places are still dealing with asbestos 40 years later. I think that show, there's a good show about elementary schools in Philadelphia. It's a sitcom. It's called Abbott Elementary. That's it. Takes place in Philadelphia. It's a good show. It's funny, but some of the humor is pointed in terms of looking at how the funding process is like draconian. He'd poop his pants like a water balloon. Oh, there would just be poop everywhere. Just imagine Putin slinging them around, just poop flying all over the place. Joe Rogan sitting there getting it in his mouth and screaming, and it would just be terrible. Bill Clinton's project started Project Success in Arkansas. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm starting to think Susan is a bot because these are very familiar pasted talking points, and there doesn't seem to be much else. She says she worked for DHS. I don't think she did. Okay, so you're not a bot. Teddy Roosevelt sent 4 sons to war. 3 of them went to the second one. Meanwhile, the Trump family is too busy working on their crypto business. I'm sorry, Susan. I don't even know that you're really named Susan. And I don't really know that you're an American. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that everything everybody claims to be, about themselves. Maybe you did work for DHS. But I just, like just randomly throwing it out there makes me think you didn't. I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I don't mean any offense by that. I'm under no obligation to just believe every random thing that somebody comes in and starts saying crazy 30, 40-year-old conspiracy theory nonsense and then says that they worked for the DHS. Yeah, I don't understand. Like, do you think that makes your conspiracy theories less conspiracy theories? If you go to France and say bonjour and try to speak French, they will interrupt you and say they speak English if you want to speak English. Yeah, they actually, if you speak French poorly, it's like you're torturing their mother or something. Like they really like just don't do that to my language. And I'm just like, well, why can't you guys learn to spell anything right? Everything is spelled wrong in French. Like if you wanted people to speak right, then you should spell things correctly. That was a joke. I know how many disabled that would disagree with you about everybody has an opinion, but everybody, yeah. This is one of those things where I was talking about earlier. Look at the top of the broomstick and then let your opinion follow that. Go and look at what the actual facts are on not the talking points that support an opinion, like actually learn about disability and SNAP benefits and what you have to do to get it, what qualifies you, how much you get. If it's my opinion that we are way too strict on it. We don't need to get more strict. We need to be less strict. Like, do you know how we determine these things? Is by the poverty level. Do you know how we determine the poverty level? There was this back in the 60s, we in the early 60s, we started the war on poverty. And we had to first define what is poverty, what is the poverty line. And so there was no way there was no rule that said this is what defines poverty. And so they asked this one lady, I can't remember her name. Hang on, I'll look it up. It's actually kind of an interesting. Her name was Molly Orshansky. Okay, and she's just a government worker. She wasn't like a politician or anything. She's just a government worker. And they said, okay, we need you to come up with a measurement of poverty. So Molly's like, okay. And she kind of did some research. And at that time, about 30% of the average American income was spent on food. And then the rest was spent on things like, housing and, whatever else. So she went to the grocery store and she said, okay, now if I have to live a week as a poor person, what can I buy? And so she got some things and I'll see if I can find this, because it's really sort of fascinating. She went to the grocery store and she got an actual basket of food of what you would spend money on. All right. And so this is like, she literally went to the store and actually put food in the basket. She didn't like look it up online because there was no online. And she put in some beans, potatoes, some flour, evaporated milk, like dry milk, not even fresh milk, not even like carton milk, some lard, and then some meat and produce. And it was only like a few ounces of meat. Like I think it was 6 ounces of meat for the whole week, and a can of tuna fish or something. And even the meat was like not good meat. It was, chicken thighs or whatever. And it came out to $18.60. This basket that could feed a family of 4 for a week, I think it was. And it was $18.60. And, it was like one loaf of bread for a family of 4 for a whole week. I mean, it's like almost no food at all. Didn't consider nutritional benefit. It was like, just the cheapest she could imagine somebody living off of food. And then so that was $18.60. And so then she said, okay, so if it would cost $18.60 a week, so then $18.60 times 52, and then she tripled that. So to get with the poverty line is just based on this basket of food. And we still use that same basic concept to establish poverty. We've changed a little bit what's in the food cart, but the actual notion of basing the poverty line on trip 3 times what a shopping cart of poor person food, that's still how we determine the poverty line. And we even went back and like there was hearings on this in the 90s, and Molly went and she testified before Congress. Look, this was a spur of the moment thing that we came up with by the seat of our pants. We should not still be using this. The person that came up with it was saying we shouldn't be using this still. And she was saying that 30 years after it happened, and 30 years later, we're still using the same stupid methodology. And if you look at other countries, they don't do that. Like they look at all kinds of things, like whether somebody's disabled and whether or not where are they at in life. Like if you're making $30,000 a year and you're a senior citizen who's retired and you own your home outright and you don't have a lot of bills and you live in Kansas, in rural Kansas, that's totally different than if you're a father and have kids in California and you're 25 and you got student debt. Like $30,000, one person can live comfortably off of, and the other person can't live at all. So just this arbitrary notion of having a poverty line, like that's one of the things we need to just completely reevaluate. There's a metric called ALICE, which is what does ALICE stand for? Low income. Hang on. What does ALICE stand for? Something about low income. Asset limited, income constrained, employed. So this is like, you don't have like asset limited, you don't own your own home or anything, you're renting, you have a limited income, but you're working. And so these people like that, like how much money do you need to pay your bills? That's kind of what ALICE gets at. Like to where you can eat like a reasonable person, not living off of beans and rice, but actually have some vegetables in your diet. One of the things that people complain about the getting Pepsi with your food stamps don't talk about is vegetables are actually more expensive. Fresh produce is expensive. So when you look at things like ALICE, it's like a family of 4. Basically, to survive, you need like $70,000 a year to like just live like normal people. And our poverty level's like a quarter of that. So, like, actually understand how we measure poverty, what you have to go through to get SNAP benefits, what kind of SNAP benefits you provide, who receives SNAP benefits. Can you get SNAP benefits if you're working? Or can people who aren't working work? Like, there are some people who are disabled who simply cannot work, or their children. Are you supporting child labor? Or their parents can't afford daycare. That's one of the big issues with the way we determine poverty is it doesn't factor in daycare. So if you have to go and work for a living, and the amount of money that you make goes straight to the daycare, then what's the point of working? Aren't you better off having the parent stay home and take care of their children so that their children don't gun around out and join gangs and stuff? Like oh, well, why aren't you watching your kids? Well, because you have them working 3 jobs just so they can feed them. Like, we need to, like, stop looking at our opinions and start looking at what the facts are, and then let our opinions be formed by the facts instead of deciding which facts we choose to accept based on what our opinion is. Look at the top of the broom, not our fingertip. Teddy Roosevelt sent 4 sons to war. 3 of them went to the second one. Meanwhile, the Trump family is too busy working on their crypto business. There's one rumor that Donald Trump Jr. actually wanted to join the military, and Trump said he would disown him if he did. For a reason, I don't know what for a reason. I mean, I don't think that you really know what you're talking about, Susan. I think you've read a lot of conspiracy theory nonsense, but you don't strike me as a person that knows what you're talking about. If you go to France and say bonjour, okay. Trump's big beautiful bill has 500 billion to 536 billion in mandatory Medicare made cuts that kick in after the midterms. That's one of the things that, like, why didn't, if they're so proud of what they did, they made sure that the tax cuts kicked in right away, but not the Medicaid cuts, because they wanted to sell the tax cuts ahead of the elections. But they didn't want to have to answer for the Medicaid cuts. So then they can just go and say, oh, the Democrats, they were all sitting there trying to scare you off with all this Medicaid cut nonsense. And then after the election, they're just going to be like, see, it's their fault. They're in charge. It's their fault. The cuts are mainly reduction in reimbursement to healthcare. That's another thing. It's this notion that poor people sit around and collect Medicaid. You don't collect Medicaid or Medicare. You just get healthcare paid for. The hospitals are the ones that get the funding. So when the hospital doesn't get the funding for that, you know what happens? People lose jobs, hospitals shut down, and then, especially in rural communities where it's like already a 40-minute drive to the hospital, now it's an 80-minute drive, an hour and a half drive. You've already got situations where people are dying on the way to the hospital because it's just too damn long of an ambulance drive. And it doesn't matter if you have insurance or not if the hospital's closed. It doesn't matter if you have Medicare, Medicaid, or like 5-star gold super Cadillac premium package. If the hospital's closed, it's closed for everybody. It's not just closed for the poors. Just watch how long before healthcare layoffs, clinics, and rural hospitals are closing. I think, what is the number? I want to say it's over 200. So just looking this up, I want to say 285. Okay, no, I'm sorry, even more. 417 rural hospitals are considered vulnerable to closure in 2026. These hospitals are financially vulnerable but are not necessarily expected to close immediately. Texas, thank you, has the highest number, 50. About 720 hospitals nationwide, rural and some urban, are identified as being at risk in 2026. Another study says 734. Some analysis focusing specifically on the impact of the recent Medicaid funding reductions estimate 300 more rural hospitals could be pushed toward closure if the financial pressures materialize as projected. And that was and does then you've got the cuts to the ACA on top of that. So I think this is one of those things, and it doesn't matter. I cannot emphasize this enough. You always get the MAGAs. Well, they should get a job then. And it's like, look, they can get a job. They might already have a job, but it doesn't matter. You can have a job. You can be rich. You can be paying for the best insurance money can buy. But if the hospital in your town is closed down, it's closed down for the riches and the poors. It doesn't stay open for rich people because it needs to make money. And when you take away 30 or 40% of its funding, it closes down. When you're already barely having ends meet, and you take away 34% of your gross profit, then you shut down. You go out of business. This will literally kill people. People are going to die as a result of the OBBBA. OBBA. Anyway, it should be called this one big stupid B-word act. When injured and all people can't get it because we have. No, Susan, we don't. You're just saying things. If you go to France and immediately speak, okay. If you go to France and immediately speak English, no one in the room can speak English because I don't want to speak to you. You're being rude. Yep, I've been there and done that. It's like, but the moment you start butchering their language, their English is perfect. Don't visit France. It's full of the French. That is the problem. You know, it got really hot in France recently. Like they were having record heat. And I was thinking, you know what you call the French people when it's that hot out? You call them French fries. I agree. It was just an example. There's a work requirement for SNAP benefits. Yeah, there's a limitation on how much SNAP benefits, how long you can receive SNAP benefits without working. And I think now it's like there is a SNAP benefit after the OBBA. Do you know that we pay contractors to take care of low-income housing instead of training people living there to do work? Yeah, do you know that, like contractors actually have skills? Like, Susan, can you do me a favor, like a real favor? Can you actually read on things before you like make arguments like this? This is not Fox News. This is not your bubble. And I'm happy to engage in an honest conversation. But you don't seem to be interested in that. You're interested in conveying and relaying just belabored talking points without actually learning anything. You're spouting your opinion without knowing what the facts are. This is like, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but it's like if somebody came on and argued with somebody that's an expert in geometry that circles really have right angles. What you're saying is just not just wrong, it is incongruent with reality. It's odd that there's a work requirement for $100 in food, but not a work requirement if you're in Congress. Man, I think the Congress works like 1 out of every 5 days per year or something now. We get mad at the wrong things. Well, we got Susan to agree on that. Congress is a good job if you can get it. I still love the no-show congressman from New Jersey. All right, Brett, do your thing. He's saying he needs. Oh, thank you. He's saying he needs to learn English. Well, you're on it. I need. Congress and government employees should not be getting 401k matches at taxpayers' expense. While we're 40, do they get 401k matches? I don't know. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if I think that we need to worry about the real reasons we're $40 trillion in debt. I think right now Pete Hegseth is asking for $90 billion to go kill more civilians in Iran, and you're worried about the 401ks of congressmen. The reason I don't have a problem with that is because if you make it so that you can't have like savings or anything if you're a member of Congress, then you're making it so that you have to be rich to be in Congress. Like, you can't have a middle class person, whether you're talking about somebody like Lauren Boebert or you're talking about somebody like AOC. Like, you can't. You've got from both sides of the aisle people that did not grow up wealthy, that and you see all kinds of slander about different people and how much money they've made, and I don't know how much of it is true or not true, but I think we need to look at how to limit stock trading and stuff like that for members of Congress, but having a 401k I don't think is it, because I think we want to make it so that it's possible that non-wealthy people can become members of Congress. I don't want to make it even more an exclusive billionaires club or millionaires club. Google Translate. Good morning, and get a job or something. Nobody cares about your politics. Well, the people that watch my stream would apparently disagree with you. You're free to not watch it. I don't think anybody's like forcing you to stream this. So, run along if you don't like it, Mike. Trolling is not a job. Get one. Yeah, it's always like the people that just have like no profile picture and fake names. Mike Baker 672. Yeah, right. That's your real name. Putin just dropped a nuke. I don't think that's true. I know a disabled person that gets $172 a month. That's about $5 a day to eat. People have no idea what you have to go through to be disabled. Did you know that you can't work for a year to get disability? You have to go a year without working, which is sort of like impossible. And then it's like, then if you work, then they're like, well, you can work, therefore you're not disabled. But if you don't need the disability, then they're like, you have too much money to get disability. And so it's like, it's a catch-22. You have to be poor and go a year without working. It's really hard. What? Okay, hang on. Like, so the percentage of people who apply for disability it's about 36 to 38% get approved their first time. It's really hard. I know this because my wife has disability, and she basically had a medical records the size of a phone book, like a Chicago phone book, not a Elgin phone book. The Trump administration made it harder to get SNAP with work requirements. To verify these requirements and to vet folks that take more staff to police those requirements, which add costs that negate any savings by restricting SNAP. If the government doesn't invest in the staff increase, they would likely make hungry families who would otherwise qualify will not get the benefit. I think we're too strict on it. And I personally, I don't have a problem if 17 cents of my tax dollars go to pay for a kid to get food, even though his mom doesn't have a job because she's taking care of the kid. Here's an idea for you. How about we pay moms to stay at home, single moms? How about we just pay them? Pay them the money that we would pay the daycare. Then they don't need food stamps or anything, and boom, they have a job. They're taking care of their kid. And then their kid grows up with the mom in the home. And so then You know, you don't have to worry about all the culture gang war nonsense that you guys are always complaining about. Solve all the problems at one time. But yeah, we're okay giving Donald Trump 38 or giving Elon Musk $38 billion. We're okay bombing Iran. We're going to spend $1 trillion on defense spending. And you're worried about a 55-cent bottle of pop. People that live in the city do not have gardens. Amazing how that works. It's really hard. You ever tried to hoe concrete before? It's not easy. $5, that might buy you a bag of chips. What exactly? And she lives in a food desert. Walter, exactly. And she lives in a food desert. Work programs through the welfare program benefits pay half and work with local employees. And she literally has to push her wheelchair backwards from the store to get home because her bags are on her lap. Wow. Even the dollar store doesn't cost $1 anymore. She don't eat well. And it's like that. Good food, like healthy food, is more expensive than junk food, right? A bag of potatoes costs more than a bag of potato chips. Sam Walton worked with DHS in Arkansas and was a wonderful program. Sure. I think you're trying to overgeneralize things and make things oversimplified, Susan. I don't know what program you're talking about. It sounds like you must be from Arkansas because you keep bringing up Arkansas, but it's not 1990. And not everybody lives in Arkansas. It's all high salt. Yeah. And that's what you can get, and that's what's available. Like there's she can't, wheel her wheelchair to 5 miles away. One of the things that Mamdani's been criticized for that I really, really like, and I would expect Susan would be in favor of this too, considering what she's talking about, but I have a feeling that she's not going to say, okay, that's a good idea, even though it's like socialism. But what he's doing is he is taking these grocery stores. He's setting up socially or publicly funded grocery stores throughout the city. There's one in each borough. And these grocery stores are working with people in the farmers in the state of New York. The state is purchasing food from the farmers to help the farmers out, right? And then selling it to the grocery stores at cost. So then the grocery stores can sell real food, not junk food, but real food to people in food deserts at a lower price so that the children can eat healthy. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. We need to look at what the real problems are, and we need to look at how we can really solve the problems. Stop looking at our opinions, people. Our opinions don't matter. What matters are the facts. Let your opinions follow the facts. Don't let the facts follow your opinion. I mean, and Sam Walton, the idea of Sam Walton being like some humanitarian champion is just laughable on his face. UBI would bring many out of poverty. It is the least the fools who voted for a big, beautiful bill brought us. I liked, I know somebody that has talked to me about instead of universal basic income, because like Elon Musk doesn't need, like UBI, right? He talked about the idea of a negative income tax to where if you make less than a certain amount, instead of like paying taxes, you actually get money based on your income. And then as you make more money, you get less government assistance. And then as you start making more money, you start paying taxes. It's called a negative income tax. And that is like, I'd have to see how it all works out, but conceptually, I like the idea. And it would work, it would be structured in a way to where it never gives you a disincentive to work, but it makes sure that everybody's needs are met. And I always say we should raise the floor, not lower the ceiling. It's not about just taxing wealthy people more. It's about lifting the floor for the poor people. When we do that, when we lift the floor, we lift up everybody. Even if that means initially taxing wealthy people more. But money flows up. It doesn't flow down. Money rises. It's like heat. It just goes up and up and up. Every time you spend money, somebody that makes more money makes money off of the money that you spent. And when you start at the bottom, all that money eventually trickles up, not down. That's why when we had like a 90% top tax bracket, we were actually the wealthiest the country had ever been, and had the lowest income disparity. Not everyone is able to garden or have space for a garden due to my health. Yeah, and some people are just not physically able to do it. I hate this nonsense. Like, well, just grow your own. Like, okay, what about the time? What about the money? What about the expense? What about the land? Not everybody has a backyard. And yes, some people can, grow crops in their balcony, but it's not easy. It still takes time. It still takes money. When Molly Orsansky first developed the metric in 1963, she viewed it as a crude temporary instrument to measure the minimum adequacy of family income. She explicitly warned that as American society grew wealthier, the standard of what constitutes poverty should naturally evolve. And it never did. This is such an embarrassment that we still use that same antiquated method. And she's the one that testified before Congress that we should get rid of it. Ordansky grew deeply frustrated. She frequently pointed out that the formula is no longer accurate. I'm a real Gen X Democrat before our ignorant government screwed us over with NAFTA. I'm a real Gen X Democrat. And NAFTA had some problems. I'm not going to be all, like NAFTA was perfect. But NAFTA is not the reason that we are in the situation we're in today. NAFTA is not the reason. The reason we're in this situation is tax cuts. The reason we have a deficit, the reason the debt got so bad is tax cuts. Susan, do me a favor. Go and look what would happen to your household budget. Everybody likes, the Republicans always want to use household budget. Tell me what would happen to your household budget if you got like your pay cut in half every like 10, 15 years. Instead of making more money, you made less money. And then so because you're making less money, you still have to you have to use your credit cards to borrow money to pay for the things that you really have to pay for, like food and housing and stuff like that. You get a second mortgage on your home because you have to pay for your necessities still. And then you're like, okay, I can't pay my bills. I know, I'll go and ask for another pay cut. The last 4 of the last, okay. Donald Trump cut taxes in his second term. Donald Trump cut taxes in his first term. George W. Bush cut taxes while he was president. Bill Clinton never cut taxes. Joe Biden never cut taxes. Barack Obama never cut taxes. George H.W. Bush didn't cut taxes. He actually added a new tax, which cost him the election. Ronald Reagan slashed taxes. Republicans notoriously cut taxes and then cut spending for poor people. giving all kinds of it to rich people. They never cut, money for Elon Musk. They gave him $38 billion. The problem is not the tax and spend Democrats. It's the don't tax and spend Republicans. We need taxes. Just like you need income, so does the government. Slashing our income shockingly actually raises the debt. By the late 60s and 70s, data showed Americans were spending closer to 1/4 of their income on food, meaning the multiplier should have been changed from 3 to 4. Ranking the multiplier would have automatically raised the poverty line, making millions more people eligible for assistance. I think now it's up to down to 20%, and that's not counting student loans. People that have to pay back their student loans, which is why Joe Biden wanted to forgive some student loans. Some people, their student loans are actually a bigger bill than their mortgage. I'm doing the ramen bowl today. I have to stretch my wallet for about another 30 days when school starts. Man. And groceries are about to skyrocket because the oil cracks spread is a record high. What is oil cracks? I'm gonna add this to my list of things to look up. Because that's the second time you use that expression, and I still don't know what it means. Barron is buddies with Tate Bros. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, they're arrested. And they're just sitting there, basically bragging that Trump's going to get them off. These guys rape little girls and stuff, so he probably will. It's called looking beyond the end of your nose, a big problem with today. Yeah, so why don't you do that, Susan? Instead of just yelling it's the poor's fault, why don't you look beyond the end of your nose or stop looking down your nose? It's all literally kept falsely, and they're hoping they can keep up till midterms. It's not the food they're spending money on for utilities or gas. Yeah, and gas is back over $4 a gallon, and it's gonna go higher. It's gonna go higher. It's going to get worse. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I mean, we could be up to $6 a gallon by election. It's the added taxes on all your bills that is the problem. Okay, when you talk about the added taxes on all your bills, you're usually talking about local taxes. Do you know why we have local taxes, Susan? Do you know why all these local taxes are going up? It's because they used to be federally funded. We used to have federal assistance on all of those things. When we cut taxes, we cut that funding. Then the states actually have to pick up that funding. And then you have something that's even worse, that's kind of hidden behind all of that. Local taxes, state taxes and local taxes, city taxes, school taxes, those kinds of things tend to be regressive taxes for various reasons. Income taxes are progressive. All right, that means that the less you make, the less taxes you pay. The more you make, the more taxes you pay. That's fair. That's reasonable. With regressive taxes, the less money you make, the more of a percentage of your income you pay in taxes. So sales taxes are a classic regressive tax because if you're poor, you end up spending all of your money, which means that if there's a 10% universal sales tax, that means 10% of your money goes to sales taxes. Just as for instance, for easy math. And you can't file a tax return on your sales taxes. The reason that all of these taxes are going up on your local taxes is because we've been cutting federal funding. And we've been cutting federal funding because we've been cutting federal taxes. Again, Susan, like you said, let's stop looking, or let's look beyond our nose. Because right now, all you're looking at is the taxes on your local tax, and which I agree is too high. I agree with that. All these cable bills and stuff like that. You know who wants to keep those in? The Republican Party. Medicare for all is the way. Last I heard, the crack spread on crude to refinery was about $96 a barrel. I don't know. Yeah. Probably you've got Republicans wondering what Hunter Biden has to do with this. I spoke too soon. Average in Philadelphia this week, 419. Actually, I think the 321 crack spread is a $70 a bed. California needs to top off the sinking U.S. ship. It's still a record high. I don't know what that means. Crack spread. I've got Hunter Biden jokes just brewing inside me. Put all the government employees on the same benefits the people get if we want it fixed. Well, that's what Donald Trump, or that's what actually Barack Obama wanted to do. He went with the Affordable Care Act. What he originally wanted was a public option, and the public option would be everybody gets the exact same healthcare plan that Congress gets, and then you could either keep your own insurance or you could choose for the public option. That was what the original ACA was, before Republicans decided to go and change everything and sabotage it and then complain about it. Inflation, yo. Yeah, stuff used to be a lot cheaper. A U.S. I mean, things are gonna, in a good economy, there will be some inflation, like around 2%, but it's getting worse and worse, and it's gonna get worse and worse. All because Donald Trump thinks that starting wars with Iran and tariffing everybody in the universe, including the penguins, is going to make things better. So you said you're Gen X. Do you remember? Like, I remember in like the late 70s, the long lines, like people would have to like literally wait, and it was like, I remember like when gas went over $1 a gallon, and there was like this freak out that it was so much. 90-cent tax on billionaire assets. Most of them under our current system have no income. Yeah, they have what they call buy, borrow, die. And buy means you're a billionaire, you invest all your money in stuff, and then you borrow against your investments. Like, you don't actually live off of income. You borrow money to live off of your investments, and then you just keep borrowing, and then you pay back your investments on new borrowing. But because the business appreciates, you get more and more money. So you don't actually have income to report. You just have increased wealth. And then because you're not selling it, it's never income. And so then you don't have to pay taxes on it. I say screw that. I've heard all the complaints about, oh, you can't tax unrealized wealth. And I'm like, yes, you can. You absolutely can. Watch me. Here, we just taxed unrealized wealth. There. Now I showed you can do it. Now you want to say we shouldn't do it. I see no moral difference between taxing unrealized wealth and putting a lien on somebody's house because they couldn't pay their income taxes. Once the reserves are gone, our gas prices will soar so much higher. So much higher. And then they'll blame it on Biden. We've already reached essentially tank bottom, 19 million barrels. The remaining cannot be refined at such low quality. I think some people have this idea that the oil reserves is like actual like barrels of oil that are already made or are already ready to go. All you have to do is just release these barrels of oil. The prices are being kept falsely low, and they are mixing 15% ethanol in the gas, which will make price at the pump lower but destroys your engine, worse gas mileage, and you burn it twice as fast. I'm old. I mean, I remember putting 50 cents in the tank of my parents' car to get the garage gauge to go back to where it was before I drove it all over town. That's funny. I remember when I used to put $5 of gas in the car to get me to work and back for a week. It only fools MAGA because they only concentrate on the price at the pump. What was the joke? Donald Trump is such a great president. My gas used to only hold $30 worth of gas, but now it holds $60 worth of gas. This is how stupid French are when they were winning their World Cup games. When they were winning, they had 2 riots. It's only in France where you riot about something going well. Well, Chicago. We used to have riots every time the Bulls won. Haven't had any riots in a long time. It's a little disrespectful to go to another country and not speak their language. If churches are getting involved, well, I mean, I think you should try, at least pull out your French English dictionary. I think it's kind of insane to think that somebody, like, if you run a tourist business, it's kind of insane to think that somebody should, like, become fluent in Swahili to make a trip to South Africa. But I mean, I think if you can go in and just try and mangle the language, they you know, you've done the minimum. Do we need to train the next generation to care for themselves? I don't. Why is that a thing? I don't even know what that means. So should charities? Are we seriously arguing that some charities aren't political should be taxed? So should charities. Are we seriously arguing some charities aren't political? Should they be taxed? I don't think charities should be taxed. I think that political organizations disguising themselves as charities should be taxed. I don't think that political organizations should be counted as charities. And when I say political organizations disguising themselves as charities, things like pro-life movements. I've got hospitals shut down here locally. I can think about 3 of them offhand. Like if your main function, and not just to make that, like pro-life and pro-choice, if the main function of your organization is to advocate for political change, I don't think that should be considered a charity. But I think something like Planned Parenthood, where you're actually providing a service for people, that should not be taxed. McConnell needs a... Okay, is McConnell alive? Who thinks McConnell is alive? And who doesn't think McConnell is alive? To hell with Pete Hegseth. Are you watching the thing right now? I'm going to go out on a limb. I haven't watched it because I've been doing the live stream, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to guess Pete Hegseth said something that's not true today. The IRGC are not, I don't know what the IRGC is. Speaking of politics, Daniel Ortega, the 80-year-old authoritarian leader of Nicaragua, says country will not hold any more elections. I wonder if the other 80-year-old will have such ideas. I'm sure he's there are some people that speculate that the whole new wing of the White House is being built with the bunkers so that he can hide out in there. And I say, fine, let him hide out in there. And then just have the president take over the rest of the White House and have the military camped out. When he emerges, arrest him and throw his ass in jail. What about the 116 children in the girls' school? Are they IRGC? Oh, Iranian something or other. Yeah, no, 1,700 civilians means 1,700 civilians, not 1,700 Iranians. 1,700 civilians have been killed. I'm taking all state and federal employees getting 401k matches at taxpayer expense while we are in debt. So what? They get paychecks at taxpayer expense. I have no problem with paying people that work for a living the same way that private enterprise would. I have no problem with that. And if you want to start making it so that anybody that's a federal employee can't get retirement, then what you're doing is you're limiting the quality of federal employees. That's like, sorry, my dad is a retired diplomat. My dad is both retired military and retired diplomat. He had his 25 years in the Air Force, retired, joined the Foreign Service, and then he did 25 years in the Foreign Service. So he served his country for 50 years. And you don't think he deserves retirement? Daniel Ortega has been in power since 2007. It was on no, it was not. It was not an IRGC missile base. That's been debunked, dude. Don't even. This is not the disinformation channel. It's not true. It's been totally, completely, and absolutely debunked. That was an American missile that killed those children. During his campaign, Trump said, "Just vote this one time, and you'll never have to vote again." Harry says, "No, yeah." So all this "no, it wasn't" stuff. This is to the clown that says that the Iranian school was killed by that. That is not true. That got debunked within hours of the first, suggestion it was true. Like, read it. James Brown, this is my real name. Step back. All right, between the two Trump administrations, billionaires got a 4.4 trillion tax cuts. I'm sorry, James. I accept that's your real name, but I couldn't read that without doing a terrible James Brown impersonation. Between the two Trump administration, billionaires get a 4.4 trillion in tax cuts. And by the way, this is a fun fact for you. Did you know that Donald Trump's wealth increased by roughly the average of the total combined wealth of 1.7 million Americans? Like basically the city of Philadelphia. Are they putting it back in their business? Who cares? Who cares? You realize that. Do you know what a multiplier is, Susan? Do you, I mean, like, I'm asking you. I hope you're listening to me and not just ignoring me. There's something called a multiplier. All right. A multiplier means that's how much stimulus a dollar has for every federal dollar spent. That's how much money it adds to the economy. And it's not all even, because the poorer you are, the more that money gets respent. And every time it gets respent, it adds more money to the economy. So for instance, somebody has SNAP benefits, right? You have this community that has 1,000 people that receive SNAP benefits. And say it's $100 each, just to make the math easy. So that's $100,000 that is going to that grocery store. So that grocery store needs to hire more people to stock the shelves, to run the cashiers, or, to run the checkouts, hire cashiers to run the checkouts. And so that adds 3 or 4 jobs to that grocery store. Then those people go and they spend money on new clothes, they spend money on food, they spend money on going to the movies, and all of that creates more jobs. And each time that money gets respent, the people that run the grocery store keep a percentage of it, and the people that own the movie theaters get a percentage of it, but it keeps getting respent. And so it actually adds more than like $1 in SNAP benefits actually adds like $1.70 to the economy. But when you give that money to rich people that use it for stock buybacks or just to reinvest in the stock market where it doesn't have any real material value, the average money in tax cuts actually adds 70 cents to the economy. So you actually take money out of the economy. With these billionaire tax cuts, you add money to the economy through these SNAP benefits. And that's why if you look at the last 40 years of history, there's this huge shift in wealth disparity in America. So, I mean, and part of the, I mean, in short, the answer to your question, no, they're not putting it back in their business. They're putting it in stocks. But also, you're not looking at the whole picture of what is the best way to spend that money to where it is the best effect on the economy. Not just the most humane, which it is also that. It is also better for the economy to have money spent on SNAP benefits than to give Donald Trump Jr. another $1 billion. That's irrelevant. They don't need tax cuts. They shouldn't get tax cuts. Like in my country, Amazon got a $4 million tax credit. How the fornication they're getting tax credits is beyond ridiculous. That's right. I get mine at 42 first time go. I didn't say they didn't. IRGC uses civilians as... No, it's not a fact. That's just a stupid bloviating opinion. That's not a fact. And even if it were a fact, let's say that bank robbers were holding a bank, or, you know, holding the customers hostage. By your reckoning, the police should just go in and kill the hostages because they're holding the civilians as shields. They're not holding the civilians as shields. They were bombing, the U.S. bombed a school. The IRGC was not sitting there using this school as a shield. Like, do some reading beyond Newsmax. If you are a small business and putting it back in your business, should you get a tax break? Yes, which is why Kamala Harris wanted to do that. That's not the issue. If we're talking about the Iranian school strike, that property hadn't been a military site for the Iranian military since 2016. And we knew it. We knew it. There is U.S. government footage of it being a school. Also, trickle-down economics doesn't work. So the whole thing that if we give rich people tax cuts, they're going to make the economy boom, it's bull poop. The whole notion that the problem with our economy is that rich people don't have enough money because the poor people keep hogging it is the dumbest notion in the history of any economic theory. And anybody that believes that needs to firmly plant one hand on each butt cheek and press until they hear a large popping sound as their head is promptly removed from their buttocks. There are no billionaires that work hard. I don't know. There might be some billionaires that work hard. Elon Musk isn't one of them. But it wasn't a small business getting a tax break. It was billionaires that are getting tax breaks. The small businesses are actually getting punished by the tax breaks because they're not making all that money. They're getting hammered by the terrorists. Small businesses are actually getting pummeled by the Trump administration. Kamala Harris is the one that wanted to give them money to help their businesses, give them loans to help their businesses. Donald Trump hasn't done a damn thing for small businesses. It's both groups and trickle-down economy doesn't. No, it doesn't work, Susan. It doesn't. It just doesn't. This is, I mean, the evidence is like the last 40 years of history. No, it didn't. Big business did not actually dip into the fund. I'm sorry, I misread that. Big business, yes, and congressmen, they took out loans, like trailer trash woman. I can't think of her name. Lauren Boebert. Took out loans and then didn't pay them back. And then they complained about Joe Biden for giving student loans. It doesn't really. How did it trickle down economics get to the 1880s when more than half of the country lived in absolute poverty? What the trickle down economics? It's just a dumb idea. What about the 1980s? In the UK was trickle down economics working at that point with poverty going up and homelessness going up? There's never been a history. Like, what about the French Revolution? What do you think caused that? Was there any trickling downing? No. Giving the government money never works out for the middle class. You know what doesn't work out for the middle class? Stupid idioms that don't mean anything. Read a book. It is a fact that becoming a billionaire or even just a millionaire, you have to take money from other people's labor. They are parasites, even if they own a company. Nobody needs that much. Right. Everything is wealth transfer. Every time there is a transaction of any sort, there is a transfer of wealth. Like that's by definition what a purchase is. It's just who is it being transferred from and to. It's a fact that becoming a billionaire or even just a millionaire, you have to take money from other people's labor. Nobody sat there and did well, there may be some that, like brilliant painters or something where, they made the money more or less on their own labor, their own talent. But that's rare. Most people that have a business have employees. And they try to keep as much of the money from the employees as they can. It's never how much money can I pay my employees. It's how much money do I have to. That's why we have to have unions. Even if they own the company. You have people that laid off people. You have giant corporations that are laying off people just because they can. They're making record profits and they're still laying off people so that they can have AI do the same job and give their shareholders bigger cuts of money. Like, what world are people living in that they don't know this? I respect philanthropists, but then they get weird like Bill Gates and do stuff with Epstein. And I wish, like, I think that, separating the two things, philanthropy, Bill Gates' philanthropy is good. The whole, whatever his relationship with Epstein wasn't. I think sometimes we make it, people are all good or all bad, or we define people by their very worst thing. His philanthropy was still positive. But we shouldn't have to rely on philanthropy as the richest country in the world, in the history of the world. We shouldn't rely on philanthropy. We should just have a floor where everybody can have a living income. We live in a republic, so our elected officials make the decisions on behalf of us, and they choose to spend it. Then, okay, you know what the problem with our republic is people like you vote. And elect these idiots. And then you don't even know who the idiots are. You just don't vote. Don't vote. If you think that the problem with our vote, with our officials, with our government is the officials we elect, don't vote. Then you're not participating in it. Just do me a favor, don't vote and don't complain. Congress and staff pay and benefits costs needs Congress and staff pay and benefits costs need to go back to their district. They need to be more accountable to their constituents than their party. So, but now you're like basing how much you're giving wealthier districts an inherent advantage over more impoverished districts. They're going to have more staff. They're going to have more money. You see the problem there? You're just basically institutionalizing racism. No more fatties in America. I don't know what that means. Come on, man. You have to be old enough to know about communism. Oh, I know about communism, yes. I also know the difference. I'm also old enough to know about fascism. Why does New York cost? No, that's not why. When you say probably, then and you make up an answer, dude, read a book. Don't come on a channel with an educated person acting educated when you're uneducated. And I get accused of being a butt. That's a good idea. Negative income tax sounds brilliant. I really like that idea. Or you could just do that with the UK doesn't set up a universal credit system where per round you earn 55 pence right? Did I do that right? 55 pence is knocked off your UC, and whereas whatever is remaining is your top up income, which means that you always have enough to live, but that's socialism. That's what I really wish. I think that one thing is we have a generation of people or two even that have grown up without the communist socialist boogeyman, stereotype. And so they're like, wait, those people over there, they have like education and healthcare, and they're happier than we are, and they don't have to like raise GoFundMe's for their children when they have cancer, and like they don't have to like pay rent for their entire lives, and like they can own their own home, and and I'm supposed to think that that's really terrible. Like, people are like waking up to the boogeyman tactics. I'm going to just say this right now. Generation Z is John Wick. He's the one that you call to take care of the boogeyman. Boom. All right. Communism is one of those buzzwords that makes people think of the Soviets, and that's what it's designed to do. But like the Soviet Union fell in 1991, 92, around then. I was actually in Germany when the wall fell, by the way. It was like an incredibly emotional experience. I was in a restaurant eating dinner, and like people were up there kicking stones off the wall and stuff like that. I was like in Wiesbaden. I wasn't in Berlin. But there were like elderly Germans there. You don't think of Germans as being like incredibly emotional people, but like 70-year-old Germans bawling their eyes out. So yeah, communism was bad. That kind of communism. That's not what socialism is. Socialism is what the people that were crying practiced. That's why I prefer the idea of mixed capitalism. I prefer calling it mixed capitalism. That's what it is. Like, calling it socialism makes the ignorant think of communism. Mixed capitalism means the same thing. And the UK isn't a failed state. Well, depends on who you talk to. Donald Trump probably thinks it is. You're a vet and saying you're not. Okay, you're a vet and saying you're not for your country. What is wrong with you? Okay, first of all, it's YOU apostrophe RE. And saying you're not for your country, YOU apostrophe RE. What is wrong with you? I never said I'm not for my country. I never said that. Nothing is wrong with me. What is wrong with you that's what you heard me saying? Like, how am I not for my country? Not agreeing with Trump does not mean I'm not for my country. It actually means I am. Anybody that really is a patriot opposes Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the most anti-American president we have ever had. Donald Trump really hates America. You don't get to say you love America and then call half of the Americans enemies. You don't get to say that you're the American patriot and then tear up the Constitution, tear up the Bill of Rights, tear up the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 11th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 16th Amendment. And now he's working on other amendments. He's violated the Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4. He has over 500 lawsuits against him on constitutional violations. He's already lost more lawsuits than any other president in the history of the country just this term. He is the most un-American, anti-constitutional president in our history by a mile. If you love America, you should despise Donald Trump because he hates America, and everything he does and says reinforces that. Please, please read the Constitution and tell me I'm wrong. And you know what? The Constitution doesn't say that there's anything wrong with mixed capitalism. And socialism gets intentionally confused with communism. It gets conflated with. I think that's what you're saying. Like the word conflated is better. It's all to confuse people. Except now you have a group of people. You have generation, like half a generation X saw this. I did when I was growing up. I saw the difference. Millennials saw the difference. Gen Z sees the difference. That was uncalled for. Who is a vet? We are what the UK wanted to. I don't. If the UK wanted to be, then why aren't they doing it? Why aren't they trying to copy us? They're not. A vet saying they are not for their country. I never said that I'm not for my country, Susan. I never said that. You should apologize to me for lying about me. I have never said I'm not for my country. Donald Trump is not for our country. The poverty line in San Francisco is $120,000 a year, but which doesn't surprise me. It's a damned expensive just to live there. I think, like, I have a friend that's in San Francisco, and like you can't buy a house for less than $1 million. And I'm not talking like a nice house. I'm talking like a basic house. I have a nicer house than him. My house cost me $70,000 in Elgin, Texas. His was like $750,000. My country was a superpower about the same amount of time your country has existed. It's almost like, you know, some people don't seem to realize that the world did not start when Donald Trump became president. I don't give a poop about the debt. I don't give a poop about the loss of the middle class. NAFTA did not cause the loss of the middle class. It didn't. I don't know where this talking point comes from. It didn't cause that. Trickle-down economics did. It was well on its way. Actually, during the Clinton years, we started to alleviate some of the issues. NAFTA is not at fault. NAFTA is not the reason. Giving massive tax cuts to the rich and then cutting benefits to the poor, that's the reason. NAFTA has some issues. I have some issues with NAFTA. They're not really the same issues that Republicans talk about. I think that NAFTA is just a yelling point for Republicans. They don't even know what the deal is. They don't even know what the problems were with it. It was, by the way, a Republican idea. The bigger problem with NAFTA, the issues I have with it, are it killed our agriculture. But nobody talks about that. Apparently, the first cat Larry in the United Kingdom has lasted 7 prime ministers now. Wow. That's quite a feline of succession. Boom! Get it? Feline of succession? That's not true. We pay more taxes now than... No, we don't. No, we don't. Like, just stop saying stuff that's like, dude, look it up. We do not. And you're conflating income tax, federal tax with state and local taxes. The state and local taxes are because we've cut federal taxes. Please read a book. It's not that hard. When you cut federal funding for schools and the school needs to stay open, that means that the local taxes have to be raised in order to fund the school. So your local taxes go up to offset the federal taxes. And meanwhile, you're electing the same people in your local community and you're sending the same people to Congress. Read a book. Cutting taxes for the rich is different than the rest. Bill Clinton came into surplus. Don't confuse MAGA for old Republicans. Bill Clinton caused the surplus. Flex tax and everyone pays except elderly, handicapped, and the American soldier. Crack spread is the difference between the price of crude oil and the petroleum products extracted from it, like gasoline and diesel. Okay. So it's not what Hunter Biden's doing in his videos. Um, sorry, I just had to get one in there. Um, so should that be big or a big number or a small number? And which is it? No, the Tate brothers are being extradited to UK, so I don't think that he can get them off unless he refuses the extradition, which I think is what the concern is, that Trump is going to do that. Blaming the poorest isn't working. It's not. It's not. And it's because when you make 80% of the country the poorest, they start waking up. Okay. I have a hunch. I haven't even read this yet. I'm just going to predict this is going to be a stupid comment because it's from this Fando guy. Democrats keep raising taxes and nothing has ever gotten better. Democrats have not raised taxes in name the last Democrat that raised taxes. Go on. I double dog dare you. Tell me when the last time the Democrats raised taxes. You don't know. I'll tell you one thing. It wasn't while you were alive, because it wasn't while I was alive. I think Susan has MAGA brain syndrome. She reacts to a word, not the whole sentence. How is that possible with all three branches are controlled by and all three branches of government and both houses of Congress? But everything's the Democrats' fault. I don't blame anyone, but it's all of our debt, and we don't need. Yeah, it's all of our debt that was put there by people that voted for Republicans that kept borrowing money instead of actually taxing rich people. And now we're like, now we've got to be fiscally responsible and make our children and our grandchildren pay for the debt that we accumulated. And now it's like people like me are going to have to work an extra 5 years for Social Security so that Ronald Reagan could keep his iron triangle going and cut taxes and give all our money to GE. Oh, goodness gracious. This is a ridiculous comment. What do you think? That's a 5-minute job? All the taxes are going to daycares in Minneapolis. No, they're not. When you start paying for those missiles that just leveled Iran, you'll find out who is taxing you. Right now, they're asking for $90 billion to kill more Iranian children. And you want to tell me that the problem is the American children wanting to eat food? When you start paying for those... Okay, sorry, I already read that one. Sorry, but I'm a real pre-NAFTA Democrat, the true blue working class. I will say this much. My problem with the Democratic Party has been we are no longer the party of the working class. We no longer support unions the way that we should. One of my biggest issues with Biden was when he abandoned the train union. He ran as a pro-union president. I was in a union. I think unions are great, and I think the Democrats have left that. But the whole NAFTA thing and the unions, they were the unions are not struggling because of NAFTA. It's because of right to work laws, which are, ironically named. It should be called right to not get paid for your work laws. Nothing ever goes back down. If anything, it will just level out. The reason we have a huge deficit is tax cuts and war. Yes, that's a good point. How much money have we spent on the wars in the 20 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan? In this war just now, in the war, we don't bat an eye in terms of how much money we spend on war. But the moment a kid gets a free bottle of Pepsi, Republicans freak out. Maybe if we put the what do they call those? Anyway, never mind. The thing where you put the pill in the pot and then you put the cap on and then it blows up. You shake it up and you take the cap off and it explodes everywhere. Maybe if we bombed those with Pepsi bottles, maybe Iran, if we bombed Iran with those things, maybe Republicans and MAGAs would get upset. We already paid for those missiles and the military budget never changes. Dude, they are literally asking for more money right now. They're asking for $1 trillion defense budget. Like, at least do a quick Google search before you correct people with wrong information. You are just not doing this right. At least try to not sound stupid. U.S. oil reserves hit the and do you think that the missiles just like, do you think it's like an Xbox game and you just hit the reset button and the missiles magically replenish themselves? Yeah, we already paid for the missiles we dropped, but how do we get more missiles to replace them with? The missile ferry? U.S. oil reserves hit the lowest level since 1983. Emergency stockpile dropped by 5 million barrels last week as government releases crude to lower gas prices. And when Joe Biden released it, it was like, this was all just, Joe Biden can't believe this was supposed to be for an emergency. Joe Biden didn't invade Ukraine. Russia did. Donald Trump's the one that started the war in Iran. This is all his fault. All his fault, 100%. Every extra nickel you spend at the gas tank is because Donald Trump invaded Iran. Remember that when you vote. They will. I don't even know what the number is now. I'll see if I'm going to ask. I looked this up a while back and it was like a couple $1 billion, I think. So I'm asking for a refreshed number. We have spent so much money more on gas. So much more money on gas as a direct result of Donald Trump's absolute, complete, and total incompetence. He might be the commander-in-chief, but he's still a moron. He has the position, but he doesn't even have the ears to listen to what his own experts are telling him. Because experts, like MAGA makes the word expert sound like a naughty word. So Brett mentions to the clown that was talking about the missiles are already paid for. They will have to be rebuilt. We've depleted the stockpile and the oil reserves. We need an economy. This is fair. That is fair and sustainable. Right. We need an economy that works for actually everyone, not just the wealthy. We have what is called a K-shaped economy right now. The richer you are, the better you're doing. 80% of the country right now is effectively, subjectively, in the reality of a recession. Real wages are declining. Real wages means wages after they're adjusted for inflation. Most of the country right now, if they have jobs, are kind of paralyzed in their jobs, just hoping they don't get laid off. They're not getting pay raises, but they don't want to go and look for better jobs because they're going to lose their health care and they're not going to be able to pay for anything. People are trapped in their jobs and the employers love it because the employers, the rich corporations, they don't have to worry about, giving, actually striving to keep their employers or their employees. Their employees are afraid to leave because they're afraid that their job's going to be, replaced by AI somewhere. Like right now, Donald Trump is overseeing an incredible economic disaster, and he's doing everything exactly the wrong way. I am not as anti-AI as some people are, but we need to regulate AI and regulate it in such a way that people's jobs and incomes and careers are protected and not replaced by AI. The only ancestry shared by all the people today is African ancestry. This is an objectively factual statement. Not all that relevant to anything, but it is objectively factual. China is building nuclear missiles. And China is building nuclear missiles and military weapons. China is all propaganda. So what? I remember that you've never fought in a war. Okay. Neither has Donald Trump. But at least I served in the military. I just paid $3.45 a gallon for gas yesterday in Southern California. Research why apparently China's green infrastructure is reducing demand. Okay. Okay. So right now the average price of gas in Southern California is $5.52. I'm sure if you paid $3.45 somewhere, that everybody would love to know exactly where you went, because you paid $2 less a gallon than everybody else in Southern California. The price of gas is being kept falsely low to keep the public asleep. It's actually skyrocketing. The 3-2-1 cracks. But I believe you, and I think I'm gonna do some research. I'm gonna do a short video on this, because this is actually a really, I think this is very insightful. I think this is something that people need to know about. I'm gonna do one of my little explainer videos on this once I understand what you're talking about. I think I've got an idea, and it's really interesting. So from what I understand, you're saying is that there's the price of gas, like when they the difference, the real price of gas is being masked by them paying these by supplementing it and by adding this ethanol. But when you look at the difference between how much the gas station actually has to pay for gas compared to what the refining cost is, then that shows there is a much bigger price difference than what we're seeing at the pump. And it also shows that we're kind of running out of gas, right? Is that what you're saying? Like, we're not out of it yet, but we're depleting our supply. And so, like, in a month or two, once we start getting all of the lemon squeezed out of the, or all the juice squeezed out of the lemon, we're going to run out of lemon juice. Then the price of lemon juice is going to get really bad. But right now, what we're trying to do is just like, we're soaking the lemon peel in water and trying to make it seem like it's lemonade. Tariffs actually help bring trillions of dollars back into America. No, actually, it doesn't. Let me, like, again, you're talking about Trump's little proclamations about promises of money. When you look at the actual, there's a figure called foreign dollars invested. That is an actual figure that's tracked. We had less money invested in America by foreign businesses last year than we did in 2024. And this year it's going down again. So again, you are sitting there using Trump's lies as some sort of proof that your propaganda is true. Look up foreign dollars invested and see what I'm talking about. Gas is also being supplemented with a 15% ethanol, which destroys vehicles and burns twice as fast, but it's less at the pump. So what you're saying is now would be a good time to learn how to become a mechanic or buy an electric car. I have an electric car. So, my Leaf, I have not paid any extra in gas during this whole conflict. Oh, speaking of which, a commonly cited estimate is that Americans have spent about $56.4 billion more on gasoline since the start of the Iran war. That figure comes from the U.S. Senate Joint Economic Committee, which calculated the added cost by comparing gasoline prices after the conflict began with the pre-war baseline. Since then, gasoline prices have remained elevated and have recently climbed back above $4 per gallon. And so that's just the price of gas. That's not the price of everything else. That's not the price of the food that's gone up because of the price of gas and all of that kind of stuff. We've already paid $56.4 billion more dollars. We saved $10 billion on the SNAP benefits this year being cut, but we paid $56.4 billion more dollars. That's 5 times as much as we've saved in the so-called, SNAP benefit as Americans. So, yeah. It's all the Democrats' fault. cutting funds for all government programs except for state and federal workers. Well, you saw how that worked out with Doge, right? You saw how that worked out. See, the problem with this kind of thing is you don't know what those government programs do, how they generate money for local communities, the good they do, the cancer, the diseases they prevent. Every single government funded program exists for a reason. And you can't just sit there and say, cut the funding without finding out what that reason is. It's a lazy argument that has been made over and over again. That's back to Ronald Reagan. Every single president sits there and they say they're going to cut funding for all the waste and the fraud and the abuse and there isn't that much of it. And you see people, oh, look at this. Oh, they're spending money on transgender frogs or whatever. And it's like they don't even know the difference between transgender and transgenic. Donald Trump probably thinks that transatlantic means that Europe is trying to identify as North America. If they can speculate, they can tax. Exactly. Yeah, there is no such thing. Ethanol lowers emissions 90%. Why do you think we don't just run purely on alcohol, on corn alcohol? Our problem is we're not funding things based on taxes. We are funding things based on borrowing. Congressional Budget Office says we are borrowing $39 billion a week. That's a fiscal year. That's ethanol creates greenhouse gases. Military and financial advice, take it down a notch, buddy. I have no idea what notch needs to be taken down, or I'm not giving military advice or financial advice. I'm just pointing out to certain economic realities and military realities. Alcohol. Okay, then why don't we have alcohol running cars? Why don't we run cars just based on pure alcohol? Why do you think that there's a 90% ethanol as opposed to 85% already? Congress needs 2 term limits and no future benefits. No, I don't think so. That's only 4 years. I mean, you don't even have enough time to learn the job. Why do people, there is a term limit. It's just don't vote for the asshole if you don't like them. And you're like, I don't know what your whole thing is about being anti-government people that like actually spend their lives serving the country. I don't know why you hate people that spend their lives serving the country, but I choose not to. My dad is one of them. Victor, please, yeah. We try not to use profanity. Well, not so much profanity, but certain words like N and R and P. Yes. I'm not seeing them, so they're either getting filtered or Brett's taking care of them, or you are, or somebody is. I had to leave them in it. I don't know if you have seen, but crack spread is the difference between the price of crude oil and the petroleum products extracted from it, like gasoline and diesel. Yes, in case you didn't hear, I'm going to actually look into that more. And I'm going to make a shorts video about it, like one of my little explainer videos, because I think that's a really good, interesting concept that we don't have much of a hold on. And I think it's really important in understanding where things are going with the Iran war. Thanks for that insight. And I'm actually, like I say, I like learning new things. I learned a new thing, and now I want to learn more about it. McConnell is at least brain dead. So is Mike Johnson. I don't know, but he is at a minimum incapacitated. I think McConnell is sundowning if he's still alive. I think he's in full-blown sunset if he's still alive. I mean, like, the sky is purple. Only government employees that deserve long-term benefits are soldiers because they are willing to die for us. Bless our church. Why is that a difference? Like, why can't it be somebody that worked their whole life in the Social Security Administration to make sure that when you retire, you have an income? Like, stop hating on government employees because you were told that they're bad. McConnell is definitely alive. Lindsey Graham spoke to him for 20 minutes on the phone. Just ask Jennings. Good one. I had a meme I made where like Lindsey Graham is jumping in between the Grim Reaper and Mitch McConnell, and he's like, if you want to get to him, you got to go through me first. Anyway, it was funny. Who knows how long he has been brain dead? At least since Obama. Here's a fun fact about Mitch McConnell. Did you know that while Obama was president, there were more filibusters while Obama was president than in the entire history of the nation before Obama was president? That tells you everything you need to know about Mitch McConnell. Trump lies daily. Oh, if he only lied daily, every time he opens his mouth and a word comes out, there's a lie there. This is another joke for you. How do you know Donald Trump is lying? Because his thumbs are moving. He's posting on social media by the minute. All politicians are lying. But all politicians don't lie the same. This is a lazy argument, Susan. Not all politicians lie like Donald Trump does. Some politicians frame truth in a way that fits their viewpoint better. And every politician occasionally tells lies. Donald Trump is on another level. Let's not equivocate and make it seem like because other politicians may have said things that are untrue sometimes, that means it's okay for Donald Trump to lie through his teeth every time he opens his mouth. Trump, the convicted felon, 34 felons, and an abuser. I was talking about this on Twitter yesterday. Like, I love it when when you get the MAGAs and you point out that he is, like if you say he's an adjudicated rapist and they're like, you can't say that. He wasn't convicted of rape. He was just found liable for sexual assault. And you're like, okay, yeah, you're saying that like just being found liable for sexual assault is a cool thing. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want my president like grabbing women, throwing them into a dressing room and jamming his digits into her vagina. Like, that's not very presidential. He and Melania don't even live together. Is she just basically an employee? Only shows up for events. And her, she got her movie out of it. That the Republicans paid the people to watch. Trump convicted by a jury of sexual assault. He paid E.J. Carroll $5.8 million. Yes, he did. And he's still mad about it. I love the fact that he's mad about it. I'm trying to remember the last time that I saw the hat lady. The hat. Do you remember the I Spy thing? The I Spy cartoons? That's who that reminds me of. The hat lady, Melania with the hat. Doesn't she look like Jim Carrey in The Mask? I think she looks like the I Spy guys. Remember the black and white? Like, I'm not African American and Caucasian, but black and white, like literal black and white spies with the hats. I remember now the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But the Queen and Prince Philip also lived separately for the last couple of years of his life, and they would very often sleep in separate beds facing each other's rooms across the quarter. Well, I don't think they were, getting busy all that much. The top 3% has 40% of the wealth. It's and you look at the transfer of that over the last 40 years, and you look at when the changes come, it syncs with tax cuts. Every time there's been a tax cut, there's been a corresponding separation in wealth disparity. And the very famously hated Buckingham Palace and preferred Clarence House. All I know is that the only Clarence House I know about, Clarence House. I was going to say the Columbia Clearinghouse. There's, I still owe them money for some tapes. But I don't know about the Clarence House. It was like for Charles and Diana, wasn't it? Trump and Republicans, I just made me think of something where somebody was like talking about, anyway, there was this kind of sob story about like this guy who was growing up and His dad never worked for a living, and they just lived in their grandma's house. And his mom died trying to get away from, and it was just this, died in a car accident while he was a kid, and his brother is like gonna go to jail and all this stuff. And you read it all, and it sounds like it's some sort of, Appalachian story. And then by the end, you figure out it's Prince William, or whichever, the one that's not a pedophile. How many of our Congress members are wealthy? Um, Not as much as they used to be. And like AOC is not independently wealthy. The Hannibal Brett says all of them, not quite all of them. And actually, you know what? Joe Biden didn't become a millionaire until after he was vice president. There are some that, and then like, is Bernie Sanders wealthy? Considering, what he's, considering everything, he has a house that he invested in, that the house is worth money. But I mean, that's just, appreciation of a house that he bought. In fact, the current king and queen live in Clarence House rather than Buckingham House because it's such a bad place to live. Shooting the Iranian school was pure incompetence by a military. They got rid of all the competent leaders, if they were Democrat or women or of color. Yeah, they just got rid of everybody that wasn't like low T, and now they want to pump everybody more full of tea. I don't understand the MAGA obsession with testosterone. It's just weird. Like, at a certain point, you're just being weird. And they've gone way past that point. The obsession with testosterone is insane. Now it's like, oh, we need more testosterone. And Jesse Waters is going on these rants about, oh, watch out, women of Asia. They're going to come and they're going to do damn. And it's like, are you like sitting there advocating for rape, Jesse? Are you saying that American men need more, or, military men need more testosterone so that they can go and rape Asian women? Because that's exactly what it sounds like. And coming from a guy who stalked his wife and slashed her tire to get a date with her, that doesn't surprise me. That reminds me, Iran destroyed Amazon's data center in Bahrain with cruise missile strikes. Boom. Sorry, Jeff. Bidenomics was building the economy from the bottom up. It was working fabulously. Took us from the complete mess of recession of Trump's first term into a recovery beyond anyone's expectation. Nobody gives Joe Biden near enough credit for the rapidity with which we recovered from the disaster which Donald Trump left us. There was a congressional budget report. See, this is one of the problems we have, is nobody reads. The Congressional Budget Office did a report in 2020 projecting what would be a good timeline for an economic recovery. And they said, if things go well by 2024, unemployment will be down to 6%. And Joe Biden had it down to 2 to 4% by the end of his first year in office, and had one of the lowest unemployment rates of any president in history. And that's just the Donald Trump jobs coming back. Well, why did they go away? And they weren't just the Donald Trump jobs going back. I know this because Donald Trump MAGAs were sitting there complaining that nobody was there to give them their Arby's order. I got timed out for nothing, bunch of wimps. I think you got timed out for like cussing and using profanity and racial jargon. I think it was explained to you. Don't use profanity. Don't use racist words like the N-word. I think Dustin, it was either Dustin or Walter. I think it was Dustin timed him out and explained why. Data center popping up everywhere and not a decent power grid to work with. You see, this is, okay, then you should be like telling the Republicans no. I think that data centers need to be regulated. I live in Texas. And in Texas, if it comes to a choice between my electricity and the data center's electricity, I lose my AC before they lose their data center. Data centers are getting prioritized over people. That's Greg Abbott. That's not the Democrats. Trickle down is just rich people peeing on you from on high and telling you it's raining. Just for you, Victor. It was probably just a YouTube hiccup, but I could be wrong. If it weren't for the billionaires making so much money in the stock market right now, the true underlying recession would be obvious. They point to the stock market as it affects the rest of us. There's a couple of things at play. Number one is consumer spending is the reason we're not officially in a recession is that consumer spending has not gone down. There's two reasons for that. One is consumer spending has changed in terms of who is doing the spending. Right now, over half of the dollars spent are spent by the top 10%. So you've got a very small percentage of the country spending like half of the money. The other 90% is spending the other half. That's one thing. It's just a shift in who is spending. That's why I say it's a K-shaped economy. The second thing that's happening is credit card debt is going up. It's going through the roof. Credit card defaults are going up through the roof. Carried over credit card debt is going through the roof. So all of that says to me that the 90% that are still spending money, they're having to borrow money to pay for things that they used to pay for out of their paycheck. They have to borrow more money to pay their necessities month after month. And that's going to have that has a limit on it before you start running out of credit. And that's why you start seeing the credit card defaults go up. So we're much closer to an economic crisis than you might realize. We're not paying enough attention to the credit card debt going through the roof. This is no longer an experiment we have watched over and over. When the Republicans take office, they give tax breaks to the rich and destroy the economy. Then Democrats take it over and repair it. It happened with Clinton. It happened with Obama. It happened with Biden. Every single one. All three of them inherited recessions. And all three of them left us in a better place than they left the economy in a better place than they found it. All three of them had lower deficits with that when they left office than when they entered office. Labor is a commodity, doesn't always have to be exploitive. Definitely the exception, though. I agree there. It's just the problem with labor being a commodity is it needs to be unionized in order to be able to be democratized. If you divide everybody, then you make everybody afraid they're going to lose their job. The business owners have to worry that if everybody loses their job, then they lose their business. That is our negotiating capital. Is not that you can't replace me, it's that you can't replace all of us and stay in business. It is cheaper for you to pay us more if we unionize than to fire us all. When the right wing figures out that this is not the right against the left, but up against down. Well, I mean, the right, I heard this metaphor before, but the left and the right is the up and the down. It's like, when you start looking at the left is advocating for the many. I mean, I just don't like the metaphor, but I agree with the concept. When the right wing figures out that is not against the right against the left, but up against the down, they will join with us and fight the billionaires, pass laws to prevent the occupation of our government. Y'all just broke Crybaby's face blue smiling. Y'all just I don't know what that means. It must have been some emoji or something, and I don't know what it means. Like, Y'all just bitter. What does that even mean? You guys are the ones that sat there and screamed about economic anxiety when you voted Trump into office. Currently, the U.S. market is being falsely upheld by the Magnificent Seven, as they are called by themselves, seven billionaires, just cycling the same money around in a circle. It's the fake part of the Trump gift. And it's also like, this is what's causing the stock market to go up. Like, if you take that Magnificent Seven, the tech and the AI parts out of the stock market, the rest of the stock market is actually down. This whole thing is inflated, and it's inflated by people borrowing money against things that they borrowed money against each other. Like the chips and the AI and all that, they all borrow money. And so there's like, and it's all unregulated. And it's all kind of woven together. And so it comes to a point where if something cracks, the entire stock market could like just be destroyed in like a couple of days. Well, a couple of weeks. Just because right now there is so much debt involved in the AI, and it's all propping up the stock market. All these gains in the stock market are debt enabled. Like, none of these AI companies are turning a profit yet. America is being fleeced on a level they can't even, they have no idea. None. You do realize the 27th Amendment was passed so Congress can't give itself a pay raise that takes effect that Congress, so that you can throw them out of office for giving themselves a pay raise. Yep. I don't think a lot of people understand that the 27th Amendment is even there. That was the last amendment. It's the only amendment since the one that made 18 the voting age. We used to have amendments a lot more often. I think we need to pass a new amendment that says that the President of the United States can be prosecuted for any crimes that they commit, whether they're official or not. Jesus was a socialist. I love Acts 2. Do you know what Acts 2 says? It says that they sold everything and had all things in communism, or in common. Acts 2, I forget the exact verse. Acts 2, read Acts 2. And it talks about how the apostles, they sold, like the Christian church, the initial Christian church, they sold everything and had all things in common. They were communists. That's exactly what communism is. The right wing is turning their cult against socialism in preparation of canceling Social Security, a socialist program. And MAGA would have, they would have definitely deported or arrested Joseph and Mary, because they didn't have master's degrees, and they would have never gotten a visa. Yes, the fire department is socialism. So is the U.S. military, by the way. If you hate socialism, you hate the military. But they love using his talking points as weapons of control. Imagine being dumb enough to fall for thinking democratic socialism is communism just so you will vote against your own best interests. Well, they did it for 20 years. Gen X fell for that. Not all of us, but I mean, they've been calling communists, Democrats communists since like Carter. And, that's how Reagan won, is labeling Carter as a communist. And, by the way, Jimmy Carter was not actually a communist. They used it, and then it was liberal. They used the word liberal like it was some sort of epithet. And they've been doing that for years. They've been doing that for like generations. And now you've got a group of people that, starting with the millennials and then strengthened with Gen Z, they use it as a slogan. Like, they love, saying that they're liberal. They embrace socialism. You accuse them of being socialist. To them, you accuse a Democrat of being a socialist, and they're like, well, you don't have to run campaigns for him. I was already going to vote for him. Trump used that as a curse word. They don't even know what it means. They're just regurgitate. And the people that he's trying to scare actually do what it means. Do know what it means. And they laugh, and they just say, no, he's a socialist, and I like socialism. You see these like pundits, even on MS Now, like with Joe Scarborough and stuff, where they're like sitting there, oh, these, today's young people, they even like socialism. And it's like, yeah, why not? Why not actually have the discussion? Again, the broom. Let's look at the facts and let our opinion be based on the facts, not our facts based on our opinion. If socialism, in the terms of, social democracy and mixed capitalism works better, then why not do it? Why do we have to have these, I'm afraid of things? Like I said, you know what? It should be make America gutless again. Because that's the entire MAGA platform, is you got to be afraid of everything. They're afraid of immigrants. They're afraid of NATO. They're afraid of, Iran getting nuclear weapons. They're afraid of trans people. They're afraid to go to the bathroom because somebody might not be, somebody with a penis might be peeing next to them. They're afraid of everything. They're a bunch of cowards. They're the gutless generation. Make America gutless again. Is constant lies are their reality? Yes. I don't think it's a great idea for us to start using other terms because they are confusing the definitions of word. We have to stick to reality. Well, I think that's why we need to, just because, the term is tainted. Like when here's an example. Do you know what the word peruse means? Because you may not know what it means. A lot of people, when they use the word peruse, you'll say, oh, did you get a chance to look over those documents? And they're like, yeah, I perused them. And they mean, when they say it, they mean that they read it quickly. They kind of scanned through them. They kind of got a general idea. And I think that's most people's understanding of the word peruse. But the actual original meaning of the word peruse is study carefully. It's the opposite of the way people use it. So then if somebody says that they peruse something, do they mean what today's normal nomenclature means? Or do they mean what the word actually means? There's confusion over the word because you don't even know which meaning of the word they mean when they say they perused. So the better is to say I scanned them or I studied them, right? Use the words that actually convey what you mean in a way where everybody's going to know what you mean. If the word causes confusion, use a different word that doesn't cause confusion. So that's why I think we should just start calling it mixed capitalism, because it doesn't cause any confusion. There's not this whole, equivocation of what does socialism mean. If we started calling democratic socialism mixed capitalism, then the right wing would start a campaign to convince everyone mixed capitalism is communism. But they wouldn't, because it's got the word capitalism in it. And nobody's going to understand how you can call capitalism communism. The wall falling genuinely meant seeing your living loved ones again. Yes. I can't even afford a house. I want to so bad. And the average age of first-time homeowners has gone up like 20 years, which means that there's less inherited wealth. It's amazing, but 2 generations of, making everything worse for poor people actually has a dramatic impact on our economy. The right wing has been convinced that Trump is America. They use his name and America interchangeably. And they think if you don't love him, you don't love America. And I would say if you love him, you don't love America. Donald Trump is a traitor. He literally tried to overthrow the country. Do you just scroll through? This is your second time you've said this. I think, what's neurotic is going from stream to stream, telling everybody that their stream is neurotic. They should arrest Andrew Tate just for wearing capris, let alone loafers without socks. What a freak of nature. Well, which is worse, loafers without socks or Crocs with socks? I do Crocs with socks. I'm not embarrassed to say. MAGA is just Scientology for conservatives. Biden is Trump light. No, he's not. Mentos, that's it. Boy, I'm that far behind, but Mentos is what I'm talking about. All right. Wow, I really got behind. So I might have to. How far? I get so far behind. How do you guys like? Do I get? Does that get annoying? Oh, and we're almost on 4 hours today, dude. Kelly. All right. So let me. So. Republicans and Democrats, two wings of the same bird. Well, it's not really. I get tired of this kind of thing. It's not. It's just not. It's that's just it's just lazy. It's lazy thing to say. It's not even worth blocking. It's so lazy. Also, are you shadow banned? So when you finally lose your timeout after 24 hours, you don't even be able to say anything here. Of course, you'll see it, but no one else will. If he hadn't come out swinging and accusing, he could have kept talking his nonsense. Look, I mean, okay. So my moderators are Harry is a moderator, Brett's a moderator, Dustin's a moderator, and Walter's a moderator. And then when she's around, Kitty's a moderator. I trust my moderators. That's why I asked them to be moderators. They're nice enough to do the work for free for me. And generally, we are happy to have different voices in the comments, and I read through them and I read them all. But just coming into are you coming into, like, Susan doesn't agree with a lot of what I say, but I've been reading through Susan's comments and interacting with her, and she's not a troll, she's not a bot, she's just a person who disagrees, and she voices her disagreement, right? I don't have any problem with people disagreeing with me, but if you're just coming in to say stupid things and troll and sidetrack the conversation, then there's no point in that. Just go somewhere else. We don't need that. Hey Mo, how you doing today? Can I get 1 million people to give me $1 each? Okay, I would settle if like 100 people gave me $1 million each. All right, I don't know, or however that would work. Bernie's wife got a house left to her in a will too, I believe. I mean, like Bernie Sanders, like people talk about, he's worth like $2.5 million, but considering what, everything, it's not like he's. But the average net worth of a Republican member of Congress is roughly 3.1 million, while the average net worth of Democrat member is approximately 1.4 million. That's an interesting thing. And if a Democrat is rich, then Republicans criticize them for being rich, and if they're poor, then they criticize them for being poor and jealous or whatever, or just wanting to tax the rich. We should play poker, all open with an 1/8 of a cent. So, fractal penny ante. I was just handed a chocolate chip cookie the size of a charger plate. Brett Wood biking, what a gift. Now you just need an ice cold glass of milk. And now I'm going to have to make cookies. I'm going to make some butterscotch cookies, like from scratch. And then I'm going to make some butterscotch pudding too. Love, one, Trump, JD. Yeah, I don't know why you feel like you always have to come on and say that, but nobody ever accused Trump of loving anyone or anything but himself. He doesn't even love his own children. 989 billionaires in the U.S. If you took the top, here's a fun fact for you. If you took the 10 wealthiest people in America and you were to tax them, their wealth gain last year, if you were to tax their wealth gain, not their total wealth, just their gain in wealth, and treated wealth gain like you would for income, because they don't live off of their income, they live off of their wealth. If you were to tax them at the same rate as the average American pays in actual taxes, then you would more than pay for an entire year's worth of SNAP benefits. Just throwing that out there. The U.S. is fixing to see the dollar has no value. Did you see? I served in the military? Yes, from 1986 to 1990. There was no wars then, so I didn't see any combat. I was also medical, so I wouldn't have seen combat if there was. But yes, I served in the military. Need an amendment or a new law that convinced felons cannot run for president, convicted felons. I don't know. I don't know about that, because you could be a convicted, like Nelson Mandela was a victim, was a convicted felon, right? So if South Africa had that law, he couldn't have run for president. You can convict somebody of a crime for purely political reasons, and then that would annul them from being able to run for office. Now, some people will say that that's what happened with Donald Trump. Of course, the evidence and the facts say otherwise, but they don't look at the evidence and the facts. They just look at the fact that Donald Trump got convicted, and Donald Trump can do no wrong. So clearly, the conviction was wrong, not Donald Trump. They call themselves Socialist Democrats. There's Democrat Socialists of America, and there's Social Democrats. Social Democrats are the difference between Social Democrats and the people who call themselves DSA. There is technically a difference between democratic socialists as a philosophy. Like, democratic socialists are more for democratically elected socialism versus forced communism, like the USSR had. But they're, like, eventually you win over the public and you get a democratically elected socialist party. But the problem is the DSA, while they believe elements of our society should be socialist, and that's what they're talking about when they talk about democratic socialism, they only mean some things. They don't mean everything. They're not talking about getting rid of private houses. We know this for a fact because they advocate for a wealth tax. And you can't have a wealth tax in a communist country because communist countries don't have wealth. Everything is owned by the state. It's like, I make this joke all the time because I'm self-employed, and I say, I'm thinking about forming a union for the self-employed. But the joke is that you are both the people and the employer. You're the employer and the employee. Self-employed. That's what it means, right? So that's the problem with that's why you don't have unions in communist countries. The employer is the people. You don't have taxes in communist countries. You have paychecks. I still can't get past, you can have 34 felonies and be a president of the United States, but if you have one, you can't work at most places in America. And it's not like they talk about, they talk about this whole thing about how they'll try and dissect why the convictions shouldn't matter or whatever. And it's like, okay, the fact of the matter is that he sat there and he smashed a porn star and did 3 pumps in a dump in a porn star while his wife was nursing their infant son. Then he paid that porn star 34 checks to keep her mouth shut, which was a clear campaign finance law violation, right? These are all facts. None of these facts are in dispute. And we know that this was a payoff because they wrote the plan on the receipt. Michael Cohen went to the bank and took out the loan, and he brought the receipt for that bank back, or for that loan back, which also showed that he sent the money to Stormy Daniels. Then he brought that receipt back. They wrote the plan on the receipt, and all 3 of them signed the receipt. I mean, when you talk about they brought receipts, they literally brought receipts. The prosecution brought literal receipts, right? This was not like some sort of, CSI operation where they had to use blue lights and stuff. They had signed confessions on a receipt of the crime that they planned and then carried out. Each time Donald Trump Sign his name on the check. That was a receipt. They brought receipts. And at the core of the crime is the immoral act of a man that smashed a porn star while his wife was breastfeeding his infant son. So just that would have been disqualifying for anybody else. But Mr. Grab Them by the Pussy can also smash porn stars and then pay them off illegally to keep silent. What was the Trump original charges? I just explained them to you. It's falsifying business records to cover up another crime. And they tried to make it sound like this was, well, you need to prove the other crime. No, you don't. And I know this. This is what happened in court. They tried to make, this was what Fox News kept trying to say. Well, you need to prove what the other crime was. And they outlined 3 separate crimes that they were covering up. And they don't have to prove those in court. They don't. And the lawyer for Trump tried to mention that to the lawyers or to the jury. He tried to say they haven't proven any of these 3 crimes that he was allegedly trying to cover up. And the judge stopped him in the closing arguments, which is very, very rare. And he said, you know, the law doesn't work like that. We talked about this, and the lawyer said, you're right, and then stopped that line. Even Trump's lawyer admitted that's not how that law works. It's never worked like that for anyone. And they try to make it sound like, oh, well, this never happens. They never charge it like this. They charge it 1,000 times a year. Actually, the normal reason that law gets prosecuted is because they're covering up another crime. And when you cover up another crime, the fact that you're covering up makes it harder to prove that, which is why this is illegal. This is literally why they made the law the way they wrote it. It's like if you murder somebody and then you break into the morgue and you burn the body, you destroy the body somehow, and so you destroyed all the evidence of the murder. You can still be charged with obstruction of justice and be charged the exact same penalty as you would be if you were convicted of the murder. Otherwise, if you can be charged with less than that, that's actually an incentive to commit that crime. So covering up the crime is just as bad as the crime. That's why they didn't have to prove the crime, because they were covering up the crime. And they did, by the way, actually prove those crimes. They just didn't have to have a charge for it. I don't know if that answers your question, Robin, but I answered it. You just typed, was that the original charges? Because it wasn't, you had a question and a statement. How do we make that? The Manhattan, so she's going to go into, yes, he did. And that's illegal. That's illegal. That's a felony. Okay. So, and we are actually, we're just rounding up to 4 hours here. And so I need to get going. Sorry for all the comments I didn't get to. We'll read the last comment just because Alabama anarchist doesn't need to go ignored. Reality is so much stranger than fiction. God, American politics right now feels like it was written by a 5th grader. And you know what? So did most of Trump's speeches. So anyway, if you haven't already clicked like and subscribe, you can do that now. I would appreciate it. If you don't like it and you don't want to subscribe, you don't have to, but I would appreciate it if you did. Have a wonderful evening. I will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.